Network.
And a good evening, everyone. It is Sunday, the 24th of January. It's just gone 8 p.m. It is the Mark King Show. Sorry, the level 42. No, show episode 42 of the Pro Synth Network show. Useless attempt at humour there. Welcome, everyone. We're here with another couple of hours of music technology talk and discussion. Of course, this week we're going to mostly be focusing on everything that happened at NAMM over the last week or so. And to help me with that are my regular co-hosts and our special guest this week, Mr. Simon Alexander, Cryss Synthient, and Ben Simpson. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How are we all?
Good. Yep.
Good.
Yeah,
Simon, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good on this bitterly
Awake?
cold Sunday. Yeah. Trying to look awake. Yeah. Good.
We'll keep you there. Ben, how are things up north? Because I know it's been a bit damp.
It has. We've had some considerable flooding around my neck of the woods. Luckily, I've escaped it. I had a bit of a panicky moment when I was in work and saw a photograph of just a bit further down from where I live, and it was like just the tops of cars sticking out of the water. I thought, oh no, my gear. Yeah. So it's got to come in here. It's everything's ruined. But
do you know,
I got home. It was all right. It was like literally about 20 metres from my house it stopped.
Yeah. Well, I saw the news pictures, and they actually focused on Warrington, and it was just one giant puddle with lots of little houses just kind of poking up and some rugby posts.
Yeah.
And that was about it. I've never actually, when I've moved into a property, I've never in advance thought, oh, am I on a floodplain? Or anything like that, because we're very flat around here, so we don't get much running off the hills, but we're very low level. I've never thought about that, and luckily I've never had to worry about it. But good to hear you're all right. Cryss, sunny California, not so sunny anymore, I'm told.
Yeah, it's a little bit colder here right now.
Good. Well, it's a bit more bearable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been nice, and it's kept me indoors, and so I've been working on some gear projects. In fact, did some pretty major revising. Here's my small pedal board. I completely rewired that.
Very nice.
I did my medium, which is now my main pedal board. And
how many pedal boards does one need? Is it like synthesizers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does your wife come in and says, "Geez, another pedal board? What does this do that the other one doesn't?" Is that how it works?
She's pretty kind to me, kinder than she should be. So I've been working on that.
Yeah.
And then behind me, you'll see, my OB6 got updated because they finally released some new beta firmware that works.
Yeah.
And then I got a very pretty blue synthesizer that's new right there.
It arrived, the Cobalt.
Yeah, so last year, was a bad synthesis and didn't get any new synthesizers until the end of the year. But 2021, we got to start out differently with the new synth.
Early thoughts on the Cobalt?
I haven't got to play it that much. Maybe half an hour or so.
Yeah.
But so far, so good. It's enjoyable. The key bed is fantastic.
It is, isn't it?
In fact, one of the nice things about it is it's so compact and yet has a 61-key FATAR bed that I'll probably stick it right here and use it as my main studio controller.
Yeah, it's a good keyboard for that. Definitely. And we'll be talking keyboard mechanisms, I think, a little bit later on. We will be talking mostly this evening about all things NAMM 2021, or Believe in Music Week, as I think is officially called, because obviously NAMM did not take place in its physical form. It was all online. It was a little bit odd, but, some interesting stuff. So I think we should just kind of crack in there. Let's just, before we do, say hello to everyone in the chat room. So we got people like Asio Head, Jupiter Boy 74, Wagyu, Sasquatch, EMX Gold, Synth Addicts, Sonic Energy Authority, Atto Z. I saw Dr. Synth in there as well, and Aaron there's Inverted Popes, Yanasetta's in there. Keith in Watford, X101, Andrew Brooks, Jim Glue, and I think that's kind of... Oh, who's that? I didn't notice that. Avril Cadabra, welcome. And Marshall's here, and Native VS is here, and I think that's pretty much most people I can see without my eyes going too blurry. Mac, hello. Welcome to you all, and I hope that you're all very well and staying safe and healthy in these crazy times. Don't forget that if you want to, you can join us on our Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and search ProSynth Network. If you want to make a donation to the channel, you can do so at this address that's scrolling along the bottom of your screen. It's also in the description of the video down below, so just click on that if you feel that we deserve some funds to carry on doing what we do. We don't have a weekly poll this week because it's just wall-to-wall news, but please do let us know in the chat room what you think about some of these things that we're going to be discussing. So it's all going to be NAMM 2021 news. So let us know what you think, and if you agree or disagree, if you have any kind of real vocal opinions, and we'll shove those up onto the screen so that everybody can see them. And let's crack on. Let's start with some light stuff first. Let's start with a new Spitfire Labs, which has kind of flown right under the radar because it wasn't a real NAMM announcement, but this one is actually rather nice. This is Tape Orchestra, which consists of a bunch of samples that have been recorded onto pre-distressed cassettes on an old Tascam Porter studio and then wrinkled to create distorted textures. And let's have a look at let's listen to the audio on this. There we go. I think that sounds really, really nice, and I've had a little play with it, and it's just your typical lab stuff again. But again, something just a little bit left field. Any thoughts on this one? Anyone?
Yeah, it's a nice sounding one. I downloaded this when it came out and got a little playthrough. I haven't made any music with it yet, but I think it's one of the more enjoyable Labs releases.
Yeah, definitely. Ben?
I haven't got round to fixing my Labs yet, so it's still in a state of disrepair. But it sounds lovely. That it's just it's like we were saying. I think it was in the last show about the imperfections in music. It's the mangling it through all this old analog tape, and what comes out the other end is somehow more appealing to us. It kind of talks to us a bit more than a clean clinical sample, and
it's just,
I think it's
just
great.
Nice, isn't it? They're all just nice, and they all seem to have a thing. Oh, Simon, forgot your name for a second. Literally had a proper senior moment. These guys were ribbing me earlier on about my my senior incontinence, so I just kind of really proved their point there. What do you think to this one, Simon, or have you not had a chance to fiddle with this one?
What, to your incontinence or the...
No, to the news topic.
Yeah, it's worth every penny they charge for it, like everything in the labs. No, I think actually this is one of the better ones they've released. I mean, I've gone through, I'd say about half of them. I haven't downloaded half of them because I've got to be a little bit conscious on hard disk space. But I do like this one. I'm a real softie for sort of big pad or atmospherical sound. So this is right up my street, and yeah, love it. I could throw that in a mix, and it's the type of thing that you could quite easily fit into a mix without having to worry and work too hard for it to sound good. So, if they keep bringing out stuff like that, they're going to be just making that gap bigger of my favourite.
And again, they dropped this just a few days before they drop a new product, which was the drama toolkit, the new contemporary drama toolkit, which we haven't featured this week. But yeah, there is clever marketing going on, I'm sure. But yeah, it's all good stuff. Right, okay, that's just the little thing out of the way. Let's get into some of these big announcements from NAMM, or centered around this week. I think the first one we'll look at is this one from Kurzweil, or Kurzweil. We had a little debate, didn't we, on the group, how to pronounce Kurzweil. It seems Kurzweil. I would have said Kurzweil, WV and all that kind of stuff. But who cares? Look, they're back with a new K2. This is the K2700, which seems like a massive, lovely looking workstation with a huge array of features, loads of controls on the top there. I think they're really kind of pushing for that top end of the workstation market. Now, unfortunately, there are no official kind of audio videos of this in action, going through various settings and voices, but there is this YouTube trailer. Let's just share this with the world and see what we think. And the I think we get the idea there. It is a big balls out kind of workstation with multiple engines. It's got sampling, it's got FM, it's got vast, it's got a huge amount of effects on there. It's got the fully weighted keyboard and the pads, and it's just like everything you could really possibly want from a big workstation. Is this appealing to anyone? I can't really see any of us here are workstation fans. We prefer to work with individual tools. But any thoughts on this, Cryss?
Yeah, I'm not a workstation person. I do think it's kind of interesting as far as the advertising go, that we've seen this several times during these NAMM releases, that the choice of music is a little bit odd. You think for this, they'd have somebody, we've got Jim Alfredson in our group, who's a phenomenal organist and key player. You think you'd have somebody like that showing off your super workstation synth, and it would be incredible. Or like the Korg that we'll be talking about, where the 700, where they've got this sort of weird kind of generic rock background and then just a synth line playing over it. I think with all the time you had to work up to this, you could have probably worked up something that's a little more interesting. In fact, even Robert in the chat says cue average trailer music. Pretty much but should be cool as a piece of hardware.
Yeah, I mean, it did
whenever we get to hear it.
Yeah, it seemed like they were kind of caught short, or maybe they just didn't get it ready in time, and so they just put kind of generic trailer music on there. It doesn't even say whether that music was all K2700. You would have thought that it would have been, but there was just no indication of that. I mean, the specification looks hugely impressive. 256 voices of vast polyphony, which is more than 5 times the last. Was there a 26? It must be. Yeah, it was a 2600. 4.5 gigs of factory sounds, 3.5 gigs of user sample memory. A lot of people saying that's quite small, but I think that's reasonable. I think if you are any good at sampling, you can work in that space. Patented flash play technology, vast editing, 6 operator FM engine, virtual analog, tone reel organs, powerful effects engines, the Kurzweil string resonance. Lots and lots and lots of features. Big Italian. I'm going to say Italian. They don't say FATAR, but I'm imagining it is. multi-zone, 16-track sequencers, riff generators, arpeggiators, built-in ribbon controllers, pad triggers, sliders, knobs and buttons, widescreen color display, transport controls. I could go on, but I won't. Oh, it's also, I must say this here, it does have an integrated USB audio interface, which I think is an incredibly good thing. And the quality of these plugs at the back here, look, again, it's you pay for what you get, and I'm sure this is not going to come cheap. Simon, your thoughts on this?
I didn't hear you say where the Nespresso coffee capsules go in.
Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. I years ago bought the K2000 when that came out. Spent a lot of money on that, and this vast technology that they've got, we've kind of forgotten it over the last few years. And I've got a 2600 buried down the back. Not expecting any puns from you, Rob, or anyone else.
My hands are free from the reverb control.
But no, I love their gear. I really do. So the thing I like about it is not only, the spec is ridiculous, and I'm sure it will sound good. I do like what Keith in Watford said. It sounds like we're about to watch Game of Thrones or something. That's a very good. But I think it will. I think it'll sound really good. I like the drum pad buttons on the side, the pads. I just wonder how they're going to implement that. That would actually be nice if we could actually use them for not just drums, but use it rather like what do they use, the works, the thing you add on to Ableton Live.
Like the trigger.
Or like a machine type of thing, which I think will be great. Couple of things that do worry me. One, how much does it weigh? Because all that sort of stuff kind of weighs a ton. And how much does it looks expensive? There's no price yet.
£52 it weighs, 23.5 kilos.
I thought that's how much it was then. I was getting dead excited.
Yeah. So that's about as much as what this, one of these KX88s. It's heavy as hell.
But I just think you kind of need to hear it. It's great putting a great picture up and the Game of Thrones intro, but we kind of need to hear it. So they need to get a demo out of it soon and get a better video than that, because nowadays people that promote new kit, we're always going, it looks wonderful, but how does it sound? So I'm keeping my eye on that for sure.
Yeah, it's not getting a lot of love in the chat room. Lots of people saying it's another boring workstation, doesn't float my boat. It's 2002 and this excites me, from Paul, very droll. But I
hope Sasquatch is wrong there, because he says it's the same way it's a K26. And that is the heaviest keyboard I have got. It's heavier than a Prophet 10. It weighs a ton. It's honestly, it's horrible. The weight of it is horrible.
This doesn't look like it's going to weigh any less than that. So £52 is nearly 24 kilos.
I'll wait till the rack comes down.
Yeah. Well, I did wonder whether there was one. There's no sign of it. So just to balance it out, Andrew Brooks says it definitely floats his boat, and he thinks it's amazing. So it has. Lovers and haters. Chris, do you really use workstations at all? Have you ever used workstations?
Never even owned one.
No, I know Ben does, don't you?
I used to have a Phantom G8, which I thought was pretty good. As a live keyboard, it kind of covers all the bases that you might need, especially for me anyway. And this seems as though it'd do the same as a live keyboard. It seems absolutely brilliant. You could even, with the audio interface, you could even hook that up with MainStage and have that. That's the only thing you'd need probably to gig with. But it's the weight of it. It's like if it's obviously intended to be either the center of some sort of studio hub or the center of a live rig, and at that kind of weight, you're just not. You're going to go for something that you can carry under one arm. That's what you want live, really.
Yeah. This is definitely, I don't know, maybe pro, isn't it?
Maybe a new strategy is to get musicians to exercise more. I was in pretty good shape when I was carting around a 106-pound Mesa Boogie vintage tall 412 recto cab.
Yeah. But it certainly doesn't seem to be lacking in anything, really. And I think it looks... I know we should be worried about how these things sound, but it does look very nice. It looks like a premium product, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's nice to see the Kurzweil, brand back kind of front and center again, and with something that kind of picks out the best of everything, really. I mean, the only workstation I ever went for was, and I only went for it because I was working with it, was the Alesis Fusion, and that was way ahead of its time, and horribly, it kind of suffered a terrible fate. But it had FM, it had physical modelling, it had virtual analog, it had 8-track digital audio, it had USB connectivity, albeit fairly primitive. It had an SSD, or not an SSD, a SATA interface on the back, which they never implemented because they killed it before they got around to adding that into the firmware. But it does seem that a lot of the ideas they had back then are being implemented now, so it just kind of proves that they were ahead of their time if it wasn't so well implemented. But there you go. Who haven't I spoken to about, Cryss? Did I ask you? Have we all had a comment on this?
Yeah.
You asked Cryss, but I interrupted.
But I think I brought you in. So, Cryss, do you think this, if this came out at a reasonable price point with the 88-note hammer action, the pads, all of that stuff, do you think it would be anything you might use because it puts everything into one box?
I think if I were, more of a pianist background, if I were a gigging keyboardist instead of guitarist, this would be something that would be very interesting. I remember, my first memories of Kurzweil stuff was that Pink Floyd used it in the, what was it, late 80s, early 90s or so. And they had their whole rig was set up around it. So I know they make some really quality keyboards, but it's so outside of my normal,
what was that? The
rig
250,
stuff.
Cryss, the sampler that never sampled.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest, workstations never interest me enough, and I think for my work method, if I can have everything up on a screen in a DAW, why would I want to sit and poke through menus on a workstation? I just really wouldn't. So. Again, I expect that it's going to sound amazing, but probably not made for me.
Yeah. And price-wise, I mean, we've got some speculation going in the chat room, so, whoops, wrong one. I hate it when it scrolls up.
Sorry, Native said 250 did sample, I wasn't sure. I know it sounded brilliant. It was their first big sample playback thing, but I didn't realise it sampled. So.
Yeah. So Sam's hoping it's going to be around 2,000 to 3,000. Sasquatch says 4,000 to 5,000. I'm more inclined to think it's in the 4,000 to 5,000 because this, Kurzweil, I think they're a premium. If they can knock this out for 2,999, I think they're onto a winner there because it's like everything, isn't it? It's all in one place. But I kind of get the feeling that Kurzweil will trade off of their brand, their reputation, the quality. I mean, it does seem to ooze quality. There's not even a mention of different sized variants, and that's something we'll be talking about.
The type of guy that I think will be interested in that is what's his name, Matt, the guy that plays for Jamiroquai.
Matt Johnson.
Yeah, I mean that's his type of thing, because he's got Motive and people that have the Genos, and it's a live performance thing where you kind of hit the button and it's everything all in one. But you're right, you can do it with a Mac and a DAW.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if that's 4,000 or 5,000, wowzers.
Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, they say they've thrown up a web page and lots of pictures and specs, but no audio demos and no prices just yet. But yeah, interesting and nice. Just nice to see the brand kind of back front and centre, really. But so NAMM 2021 was this completely online event, kind of branded as Believe in Music, and it was I did. Did any of you guys sign in and go schedules and get into the whole thing? Was that just me?
I was just a casual passer.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the way that they did it. I thought, the way that you could just go in and search for the brand or the type of product or anything, and then you got thrown up a whole bunch of things, and you could just add it to your schedule, and then it would send you little reminders, and there was an app as well that I think they kind of nailed the functionality of it all.
Yeah, I think for me, I did register and check out some of the content and kind of poked around to see what it was like. However, I think with where things are at today, it just seems a lot more convenient to do it the way that we have been. So if you've got you're keyed into some cool groups like ProSynth Network, or you're subscribed to your favorite manufacturers' YouTube pages and Facebook pages, you should be able to see pretty much everything else that comes out without having to go find it on the NAMM site.
Yeah.
I mean, as a consumer, I mean, that's not talking about what, the original intent of NAMM is, but for most of us that are only really concerned about what new pieces of gear are coming out, pretty much all of that you can find on forums and YouTube now.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like it was very much an aggregator, because a lot of the content that was scheduled, to happen just ended up being on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever. So, but it helped you find that stuff. But like, as you say, I think we're all pretty much skilled now in looking for this stuff. But it was nice to kind of see it. My biggest disappointment was, we mentioned it last week when we had Tom on, that Yamaha had scheduled 4 slots on the Wednesday, and it said new synth, and there was no mention of what it was. And Tom actually said, I reckon that's going to be the YC, which they've just released the 2 larger keyed versions of. And he was absolutely spot on, and it was. And I was like, oh. Given all the other hassle, all the other news that had come out from a particular company, which we'll come on to in just a moment. And also, I was very surprised that Roland seemed to be missing from the schedules. And then all of a sudden, they turned up with this 20-minute coverall video that mentioned a few things, again, one of which we'll talk about later today. But yeah, it seemed it was definitely dominated, and the elephant in the room is Korg, who I guess are this year's NAMM winners with with everything that they've announced
considerably.
So so shall we crack on and talk? I don't know which way round to do this. I mean, there is so much.
Let's Korg away.
Let's Korg away, indeed. I'm going to start with I'm going to use this as my because this is my favourite of their announcements. The miniKorg 700 FS. And this has got a lot of people talking, mainly because a lot of people are not keen on spending €2,000 is the quoted price on a small monophonic reproduction keyboard that offers a few modern twists into the bargain. So it has preset memories, it has USB connectivity, MIDI connectivity, and so on and so forth. I have a real soft spot for this, because this was the first synthesizer that I kind of played with. It was, we had one in high school. Nobody else got it out. I actually spoke to my music teacher the other day, and he told me where he bought it from and how much he paid for it, and he wished he'd known how much they were going to be worth, because he'd have taken it with him when he left. But nobody knows where it is now, because my kids are at the same school and they have no idea, which is sad. But this was, to me, my introduction to synthesizers in their physical form that I could actually get my hands on. So, I love it, and I love the sound of it. I love the simplicity of the controls, and I love the look of it. It's fantastic. Is it worth €2,000, dollars, pounds? I don't know. It's a limited product. They haven't said how limited though, but it's premium, and it's it seems to be an incredibly well built thing. Simon, come to you first on this one. Will this be added to your collection?
Probably not. Purely because I just don't know that I would use it. I mean, it's not to say that I don't like it, and a couple of things about it. I'm not a fan of them doing their limited editions, because over here in the UK our allocation is awful.
Yeah.
And I got really badly stung with the 2600, and now of course you see people selling the 2600 stupid money, sometimes 130% markup. I don't have a problem with people making a few quid, but that's taking the biscuit a bit. So again, when I first heard a 700, not the S, I thought it was crap. I really did. I thought it was utter B. But I kind of had a sort of kindle with it over the years, and when it's been used on a lot of good records, a lot of people have used it. I think if it was a bit cheaper, Rob, I probably would. I just, the £2,000 mark for me kind of just puts it out of. It's a bit of furniture, you know. Again, I don't need it for certain, and I think, well, yes, it's a lovely little bit of furniture, beautifully made, looks fantastic. You know, you can actually save presets on it, which is something you obviously couldn't do with the original. But yeah, it's just the wow's a factor, because I think the price of it is just sort of, for me, is a no.
Yeah. Cryss, is this something that you would be attracted to, whether you had the money or not?
Yeah, I think it's great. I've heard Native ES do some cool stuff with his. I think the price staying in the limited edition, as everybody has already been saying, is kind of ridiculous. And some of the guys are hinting at the chat room, like maybe it should have been dubbed the 700 FFS, given the price. I don't like this strategy. I think it's great. It's better than not to release these classic pieces. It brings in money for a company. It gives some people who may have had experience with these in the 70s and 80s a chance to own one that's new and reliable, has more features. But to do the limited edition and charge so much for them, it seems, I don't know if this is coming as a backlash to what Behringer has been doing or not, but since they've been making things so affordable and plentiful for everybody to have, to kind of paint yourself, Korg as, look how boutique we are now with our limited editions, seems it seemed lame to me to do that. Again, the actual synth itself looks beautiful. I would love to have one and use it, but for the price, I mean, when you compare it to things that are around the same price, you gotta kind of wonder. I mean, the Matriarch is right in that price point, and it is so much more flexible, so many more features, and to be honest, it sounds better too. So I'm not sure what they're going for. If it were a lot less, I think they would have something really cool. If these companies, Korg release all their old synthesizers again, if Yamaha would do their CS series, and even before they get to the CS80, like, how about we do the 5, 10, 15, 40M, whatever, all those classic mono synths, start getting some of those out. But if you're going to charge $2,000 to $3,000 for them, what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said when this came out, this is an emotional purchase, not a practical purchase. You're going to be buying this because you might have the same emotions that I do. This was your first synth or something.
Yeah.
It's an emotional thing, and it's going to be bought by a handful of people, literally a handful of people, because of that, rather than it being, my God, I need one of those because my next album requires it, or it would be great to take out on tour. As Simon has intimated, it's a piece of very nice electronic music furniture, and it's an emotional purchase rather than a practical one. Ben, you've got the predecessor, the original predecessor, the micro preset.
Yeah, I'd like it for that reason. Yeah, because I love the sound of that, but it's got its memories are kind of memories. They're not really memories. They're the kind of starting points. And any control adjustments that you made aren't memorized with the button. It's just the kind of oscillator preset that comes up with that. So I'd like that expansion on that, especially the memories and the connectivity and that. I just agree with everybody about the price of it. I think 1,300 quid would be more realistic on that, and a limited edition as well. I mean, how many numbers are we talking?
Doesn't say.
Are we talking like 200 or 10,000? It's like we've got no idea. So I think I don't agree with it being a limited edition, and I don't agree with it being so expensive, but I would like it, and I think they've done a superb job of it. For instance, for me, that case that you get with it, it's lovely, but that just go straight at loft and never come out again for me. So I don't need that. That should be an option.
It's definitely a collector's thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let me throw this question out there. Given what they've done with the ARP, which we're going to talk about next, and they've released this M version, do you think that at some point in the next year we're going to see a 700 FSM or 700M, which might be just like a desktop module without the keyboard, but with the circuitry and those lovely kind of chromed knobs and stuff? Is that...
No, that's Behringer's market. I don't think they...
You reckon?
With that. Yeah, I do.
Even though they've done the ARP 2600M?
Most people don't even know about the 700 FS.
Yeah, true.
And there's lots of other options. If you take it, and I'm not, again, trying to diss it or anything, as a synth, it's a very basic sounding synth. I would hasten to say that the majority of monophonic synths can do what it can do. Possibly not everything.
Oh, yeah.
It
was a very basic synth, completely. It was just there
to
sit on top.
Was it 70? When did it come out?
76.
No, 73, wasn't it? 73, 74?
I thought it was a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
But
whatever.
Let's go mid-70s. There we go. But yeah, when I played with it at school, it was just like, this is like really simple stuff. And then when I started really kind of learning about synthesizers, it was like, okay, so why hasn't any other synth got a Traveller? Because I just thought, the Traveller must be... But then, you realise that the Traveller is, a filter control, but everyone else was just calling them filters and cut-offs and resonance and the singing, the percussion and the singing knob, which was a little, it was oddly named, and it was just an odd-looking thing with those damn great big chrome controls, but... Yeah, it was just a lovely, lovely thing. And I like the modifications they've added, this joystick control and the USB and the MIDI. I've seen people say, well, you could buy a 700S second hand and retrofit it with some of this stuff. But then would you, I'm not entirely convinced that that's a worthwhile thing to do if you can buy something that's 100% reliable, with modern components and a warranty.
There was a discussion in the group saying, like, well, if you buy in this because it's got vintage appeal or it means something to you in its original format, why do you want these changes? Shouldn't it be an exact like-for-like replica of that? I just wondered how people felt about that here, because I think that the improvements are good. I don't think that, because something didn't have any patch memories at the time, doesn't mean that the new version can't. Because it didn't have USB doesn't mean that the new version can't. I think if those things were available at the time, they would have been on it.
Yeah.
I think
you've got to make it usable for today's users anyway. But I think, going back to what you said, Ben, about the case and that, make it at 1,200 quid or thereabouts. Ditch the case. It's a nicety, but quite frankly,
have it as an optional extra.
All right, have it as an option.
Yeah.
And then don't make it limited. And I think their sales would be a lot better, because the tooling to make that, I don't understand. Why is it limited? Again, we don't know what the limited is, but let's say you're 3,000 as a ballpark figure, but the tooling to make that.
Yeah.
I just think.
I think I think it's a marketing a strategy, because why not? You would think, why not let the market decide? Like, if not a lot of people want to buy this or the full size 2600, then they would look at the numbers. There's not that many people. It's dropped off. All the people that wanted to buy it or could afford it have bought it already. Okay, we're going to close down production. But when you start it from the very beginning, it's going to be limited edition. It's going to be limited edition. In fact, many of the people that want one will not even be able to get one, like yourself, Simon, with the 2600. That to me just says we're trying to create an image of exclusivity, of us being, very high and boutique. It doesn't. There's no other reason for it. There's no other reason, especially like you think of the 26. Okay, maybe the 700 isn't the most popular thing ever, but the 2600 is, and there were so many people that wanted to get one across the world. That why would you not make more of them and make more? You're making a killing off of them, so why not make more of them? Well,
I agree. When I spoke to Luke, I told him I thought the policy of the 2600 full size was ridiculous, and he happened to agree with me. He said we could have sold 4 or 5 times our allocation. He had people crying down the phone, and again, awfully done, because most of the people that bought them just threw a deposit down knowing full well that they could hike the prices up. And it, you know, the real people that should and wanted one, greed aside, should have got one. It's ridiculous. But anyway, don't start me up on that.
So
crazy.
You know, Inky says in the chat here, she says, agreed, they just left room for Behringer. And I really feel like this is a reaction. It's not a proactive, good strategy. It's a reaction of how do we distinguish ourselves, because we can't compete with them in price and all that they're doing. So we have to make ourselves look like the again, I need the right words for it. Somebody help me out with the words. But we got to look like the boutique company now, but you're still Korg.
Yeah.
There's this little tennis match going on between Behringer and Korg with the 2600. I'm sure we'll get onto it later about the other stuff they're bringing out. But there's obviously, you know, competition of that area of the market. I mean, you know, the lower end of the market, which is where everyone wants to get hold of a piece of the action, a piece of the 2600 sound. So, you know, it's now sort of changed from Behringer sort of doing their version to Korg bringing out, you know, another 2600. So you've got a lot of choice. But I just wish that, and I take fully on board what Wagu's saying about the, you know, the way it's been the policy in Japan about building them and what have you. But I just think they put the 2600 out, the full size one, thought we'll stick it out on a limited issue, not really understanding the demand that people were gonna initially put down to have this thing at $3,500. You'd be crazy not to, because you know what are they going for second hand now? 10 grand, which is stupid.
I mean, this I'll save my view on it later, but also this thing is Korg are going very big on made in Japan on a lot of their stuff, and I don't know whether this is a local thing in Japan that they're really trying to push Japanese manufacture. I really don't know why that is, but I'll come on to that on another Korg product that we'll discuss a little bit later on. But let's move on to the one that we were speaking about when you can find the right page for it, which is Korg's ARP 2600M, which I've seemed to have completely lost the page for. Where did that go? Oh, there we go. Right. It's not there. It is there. Here we go. So, yeah. No, that's the ARP Odyssey. Oh, there's so many bloody Korg tabs here. This is just nightmare, isn't it? Okay, well, look. They brought out a 2600M. It looks like the 2600 FS, but it's about 40% smaller. It has 3.5mm jacks, but it has the built-in spring reverb and the speakers, and it looks, you know, just like a 2600, but in smaller fashion. And it's got USB host and slave in there as well, so you can hook up a USB MIDI controller. I thought when we saw some supposed leaked pictures of this back when the original, or the big boy came out, that it looked like there was a purpose-built keyboard. And again, I'm wondering, was that just somebody who just kind of, you know, faked that picture, or had Korg planned to do that and just decided to not to keep costs down, or to, you know, to hit a deadline? Anyway, I mean, what's everyone's thoughts on a 2600M for the masses?
Brilliant idea, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Go on, Simon.
No, look, Behringer have brought out their version, which everyone is eagerly awaiting for. The price is right. It looks great. It's very colourful. I have heard from a reliable source that they come out the factory literally put together, not set up. When they're set up via tech, you A/B them next to a proper 26. They're very close. From the factory, they're not so close. That's what I've been told.
Right.
Now, $600, £600, whatever, the 600 euros. And then Korg come out with the 2600M. Let's say that's, I don't know, 1,300 quid, $1,300 US. That's now going to pull away some of the people that may have been halfway in between buying a full-size one and the Behringer one. So I hasten to say I would imagine that the Korg one would be better set up than the Behringer. I might be wrong, but I would imagine it will sound identical to the FS. I don't know if it's got the spring reverb in it. I'm not sure about that. But it certainly gives people an in-between choice. So I think they'll do very well with it. I really do.
Would this interest you though? Because I know you were down for the full size one. I'm just wondering whether
the reason I was down for full size one, I mean, I've got an original one, and I wanted two together.
Right.
I wanted the sound of two together, purely for the way it will look. A little one next to a big one's going to look ridiculous, but I may.
That's what my wife says.
Yeah, I may still, if I can't get hold of a full size one in the near future, not for the price of going for second-hand, I will certainly look at this. If it depends, again, Cryss, if it comes out, sorry Ben, Cryss, whoever said that, if it comes out at $2,500, then no, I won't look at it. If it comes out for something around about where I think it's going to come out around £1,500, then yeah, I will certainly look at it, and I want to hear it. I mean, I still haven't heard the reissue of the sequential stuff. So, and I've heard on YouTube that stuff, but until you really get one next to what you've got. But, yeah, I like it. I certainly like the look of it as well.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the 2600?
I'll probably save mine for the Behringer.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that because obviously the other news this week was the announcement of Behringer's new versions of the 2600. So we'll come to that in a little while. Okay, so that's 2600, and we've got to rattle through these, but we haven't got all day. So what should we do next? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about a new Korg synthesizer, because they did announce a brand new synthesizer, and this is the Korg modwave. Again, I'm struggling to find the damned page. But have I? No, there it is. Right, so we've got that there, modwave. There we go. Right, this is in their reusable platform. I don't know. There must be a name for this platform. I wish I could find that out. But this 37-note plastic-cased Raspberry Pi powered platform that has delivered the OP6 and the wavestate beforehand. This now brings effectively what they've done is they've taken the old DW8000 and kind of doubled it really and shoved it into this small box with they've brought back the Chaos pad, and it I mean the demos and that I've heard of it sounds very nice. A lot of people are saying it's not really just a simple case of bolting two DW8000s together. It's a bit more besides, but it's wavetable synthesis rather than wave sequencing, which was what the wavestate did. So it adds another kind of element to that. Thoughts on this one, Ben?
Yeah, the thing is with them recently showing us the 61 key version of the wavestate.
The wavestate SE.
It kind of puts you off getting this now. It's like you think, well, I don't really want that format. Because I don't like that format at all. I don't think either it's a desktop unit or it's a synth. For me, I don't particularly care for that particular layout. So, I think it sounds good. But I've already got like a microwave, so I'm pretty okay for me wavetable stuff. But yeah, another good addition to that growing collection of synths, and I think that they're onto a good thing with it. But if I was to get one, it would be the 61 key when it more than likely comes out. Yeah,
there is that. So we'll talk about Wavestate SE because I've got a thorn in my side with that one, and I'll come on to that later. But as you say, these are a nice set of synthesizers, 37 keys, compact. They do some really nice stuff sonically, and I guess if you really are fussy about your keyboards, because these are fairly plasticky keyboards with no aftertouch, You can just plug in a controller, as many people do nowadays. But I just think it's nice to see that this platform thing is growing, and that you will get there's something for everyone in this range. Cryss, have you been tempted by this one?
No. I think it's interesting as a synth. However, I think by principle of them not putting aftertouch on it, I would not buy it.
Yeah.
And so we've had the wavestate SE. I guess we'll talk about, but which at least they had added aftertouch to that. But I'm kind of thinking along the lines of Ben. Like I can see why this size is popular. And I could deal with that. Like, okay, I could have this, but if you're not going to put any aftertouch on it, I don't really want to mess with it. And of course, our Dr. Synth in the chat says, the wavestate SE was nice, but Korg needs to go the other way. Release wavestate, optics, and modwave as desktops. And I'm kind of feeling the same way too. Like, if you're going to not give it everything it needs in the keyboard form, why not just cut it down to a desktop at least, and I can use it with something else that I have that has a nice key bed, or you can double your money to just get a few more keys and some aftertouch. But
yeah, well, I guess this one is going to go head to head with stuff like Argon 8 from Modal, because they're both wavetable synths, whereas wavestate was a wavetable sequencing synth, more akin to the wave station. I guess there's some direct competition, and then price wise, I think Modal are going to win out there.
Yeah, I think these are great synthesizers. So I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I just hate to see them continue to cheap out on a key bed. But the synths themselves are sounding good, and they seem to be very popular. People are enjoying them. Of course, our friend Mark Barnes has been doing a lot of patches for these smaller Korg, the Op6, and I think he's also done the miniKorg. And so you've got all these really great little synthesizers, but in its current form, I see why they're doing it, but it just doesn't appeal to me to do it like that. I would maybe more be interested, again, if it were either desktop or a reasonably priced, synth full keyboard version.
Yeah, I'm just hurriedly trying to find a thing online, but I'm not going to do it in time. Somebody has already taken a wavestate, removed the keyboard, cut that part of the bass off, and then just made it into their own desktop module. Somebody's already done that. Yeah,
but there's not a lot of going on in behind the knobs kind of thing. So I reckon you could fit 3 of them in one kind of chassis.
Yeah,
have a unified control surface and have the Op6, the wavestate, and the thingy all in one. That'd be worth buying.
Yeah. So a piece of wisdom here from Meanie, the opposite of the all-in-one workstation, dedicated synth engines with specifically designed UIs in the desktop with a VST editing option like the Modal stuff. And yeah, exactly. I think these are going right up against what Modal are doing with their platform, which again is a unified platform where they're able to just kind of chop and change the colors and the software that gets uploaded to it. And maybe a little bit of the internal hardware, and push out great priced, great sounding synthesizers. And I'm really looking forward. I don't know. I'm certain that Modal have something else lined up on that platform. I think we're going to see a few more. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of go head to head. Simon, did we speak to you about this one? Is this?
No, I mean, no? I think I've said what I think about the platform in previous comments.
Yeah.
Just epoxy screen size. I can't work with anything like that.
No,
I just don't understand why. The screen technology these days is so cheap. So for me, it's just I would. Sorry, I just can't work with stuff like that. So no,
I fully understand. Okay, so let's. I want to do this one because I want to make sure we definitely talk about this. This is the one that's got to be in my bonnet above all else. And that is the announcement of the wavestate SE. Now, there was a video shared on YouTube. This is apparently still, it's not in it's not in any form of production yet. This is just a first look video where they kind of discuss the new features and what they've done to expand on the other wave state. Essentially, this is just as I was so this is a 61 note version of the wave state in a metal chassis with aluminium knobs. It has it's all built in Japan. They're quite keen on informing us of that. The factory patches have all been reprogrammed because this keybed has aftertouch, which the original wave state didn't. So you've got aftertouch, you've got 61 notes, you've got an aluminium chassis and aluminium knobs. It's made in Japan. Don't think there was much else, and they want essentially twice the money of the regular wave state. So we've only got a US speculative, I'll give you, but it was speculated by a Korg employee that this would be $1,599 US for this thing, which is essentially twice the price of a wave state, the standard wave state. Forgive me, but where is that extra $800? Because I don't see it. Have I missed something? I really can't see it anywhere. Any thoughts on this? I mean, they've pimped
the
it a
screen's
little bit.
still the same size.
The screen's still the same size.
It's the materials have changed,
Yeah.
and it can't be £800 worth though.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. I keep looking and I can't find anything over and above what we've just spoken there that is different. It's the same sound engine, except the presets have been adapted to take advantage of aftertouch. Well, why weren't they like that in the original? Because the original apparently can respond to aftertouch, so why not just stick that bank in? And a valid question has been asked online: is that bank going to be made available as free to current wave state owners so they can update? At least then they can benefit from the aftertouch modulation source. I don't know. This really bamboozled me and got me a bit wound up, I should say.
Yeah, I just checked out. So on the Sweetwater website, looking, since we've been talking about modal, which is would be a huge competitor for them, and by sound, they are competitors. Both this Korg series and the modal stuff both sound great. No problems there. But when you compare what you get for your price, if you start out with the 37 key kind of middle model of the modal stuff, whether it's Cobalt or Argon, so $750 for $100 less, you can get the desktop. Or if you pay $70 more from the middle version, $70, yep, you get the 61 key FATAR key bed with aftertouch, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Versus
the price difference for this wavestate SE, which is ridiculous.
I just don't see it. I can't. I've seen people try to defend it, and I can't understand their point of view. I mean, surely, Simon, this one gets your goat.
I was speechless over there, Mark. I just think it's utter bollocks. How can you look at the modal and it's like an extra 150 quid, and you're getting a better platform, everything that you'd want, and you can say, yeah, okay, an extra 150 quid, you get 61 keys, it's bigger, it feels nice, da-da-da-da. I'd feel really jacked off if I was an original wavestate owner and they've done this to you.
Again, sage words here from Meanie here. That's not much more than a Hydrasynth, what they're asking for this. And you compare what the Hydrasynth can do to what this can do, you still can't justify that price. I personally just can't see it.
Yeah, you still think about what you get with the Hydrasynth. I mean, it's like having two of those Korgs in there. I mean, it's a virtual analog and a wavetable synthesizer. It has a much better user interface already. It's spread out. The scribble strips, are better than the little screen. I mean, there's poly aftertouch. So, I mean, you consider all that stuff. Yeah, why would I want to spend $250 or $350 more for for the Korg over the Hydrasynth.
Do you get a year's supply of sushi? Is that what the extra money's for? Because I can't see how they can justify it any other way.
I'm just hoping. I really am hoping that the Korg rep that quoted this price is wrong, and that is actually much closer to $999. I could see a slight justification.
Even that, Rob.
Yeah, when you compare it to the competition, because when you look at what Modular are doing with Cobalt and Argon, and assuming
dare I say it, if I was Pip Taysom looking at what they've done with that, I would say, hang on, wonder where they've got that idea from.
Yeah, I know, and it's I mean, it puts them in a hugely strong position, because if you're I just don't get it, because for what's the 37 note Argon and Cobalt now? It's about the UK price is about $579, isn't it? Or it's just under £600.
Which is what the plastic wavestate is. It's about the same sort of price.
Exactly. But with the Cobalt and the Argon, you're getting aluminium casing, FATAR after-touched keybed, app functionality. You don't get any. There's nothing like that with the Korg stuff. Is there? I mean, I know there's an editor librarian in the works for OP6. Is there a wavestate app? I'm not sure. But
that's another thing too. I mean, for $20 more, you go from the wavestate, the original 37 key version. For $20 more, you can get the Argon 61 key version, and then you're not dealing with the little screen because you got the app. And so having the little time that I spent on the Argon, I downloaded the app and I had it set up with my computer sitting right here. So I mean, I really wouldn't want to spend a whole lot of time programming on the Cobalt just from the interface. It's fairly knobby, but there's still some modulation stuff that you gotta. It's got the little screen, but you've got the whole app there to look at things, and it makes it so much easier. I just can't see the draw.
There's an iOS version of that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
So it's even better.
Not one of Korg's finer moments.
And again, just another design element. I mean, it might seem a little bit silly that with the Cobalt or Argon that everything is on the side, but when you think about it, they show it in their picture. You could have an iPad set up on it. You could have another synth module set up on top of it. Whereas with the Wavestate SE, everything is right dead in the center, which is may or may not make it easier to use. I'd rather have it on the left hand side so I can just use my left hand to turn knobs while I'm playing and adjusting things. But you kind of make the rest of the surface area a little bit useless.
And you could pop an Argon 8 desktop module on that right hand side of a Cobalt 861.
Yeah.
Or you could even put a Cobalt module on a Cobalt and use the polychain feature. And so then, So, I mean, the modal way of doing it has just been brilliant, and made more so by this, which just, I've been racking my head because I thought, oh, great, 61-note version of Wavestate, as I think Ben alluded to earlier. I guess we can assume that there's going to be, or they're thinking about 61-note versions of OP6 and maybe even modwave. But at this price, really? I'm not paying another 800 whatever, bucks, euros, pounds, just to have it housed in an aluminium case, which it should have been, just to have it with an aftertouch keybed, which it should have been. And this, I've noticed on a lot of Korg synths now, on the top key of the keyboard, there's a little sticker now that comes sent with it, made in Japan. Like, that's a thing that because the other thing was the justification that I read from this rep was, premium keyboard, aluminium casing, special edition, and made in Japan. I was like, well, no, there's not 800.
Well, made in Japan used to be a bad thing, but didn't it? It was like, oh god, it's made in Japan. But the quality of the electronic components coming out of Japan, I think.
We all know that Japanese stuff is good.
Well, I think that the thought is that it could be made in China, which is not as good, So
but modals are assembled in China. It's all Behringer.
Hydrasynth as well.
Yeah, I mean.
ASM's
a Chinese company. Yeah,
take it back.
let's not disparage what it's. Everything's made out there somewhere, and for the most part, it's all very, very good. So I'm not entirely sure why that's being pushed as a as a selling point, because for me, I don't care where the synth is made as long as it's well made. It can be made in somebody's shed at the bottom of the garden, or it can be made in a factory in America or China or a sweatshop in Bangladesh. As long as as long as people are getting paid to do that properly, then I'm happy with it. But yeah, it's very odd. Again, might it be a backlash to a kind of a response to the thing that Behringer brought to the market, the fact that they're mass producing in China, and now they want to differentiate themselves. Oh, this is made in Japan because.
But that's what I mean. It's like the releasing things that are expensive, that they have competitors that are priced much less, and so they're trying to make out that this is a prestige item now.
Yeah.
I think.
Definitely.
Pretty much the way that Moog have been over the years. I think Korg are trying to say that our stuff is. If we were a car, we'd be a Jaguar. It's. I think they're trying to put themselves.
And our plastic is better than yours.
Yeah, and then they're turning out smart cars. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Korg have we kind of got excited by some new stuff. We've been a bit perplexed by some of the older stuff. But we do have some other new concepts which are fairly interesting. So this is this is a first look. It's not in production yet, but this is the drumlogue, which is a hybrid drum machine, which they previewed, and it still looks very breadboardy. If and everything's just kind of blurry close-up shots in the dark, which I thought was odd. I'm just trying to find some better pictures of it. There isn't really much, but yeah, it's a hybrid. It's a log type synth, so you'll be able to you'll be able to upload stuff to it as well. It'll be expandable. An interesting new addition to the drum machine paradigm. Any thoughts on this one, Cryss?
Looks interesting. I've heard a lot of people say that they're very interested in it. I haven't looked too far in depth about it. And while I got you, let me know as soon as we're done talking about this. Let me interject something on behalf of Andrew.
Sure.
When we're done with this.
Okay. No worries. Ben, is this a drum machine that you'd...
I don't know a great deal about it yet, but I think that the idea of taking that log format and putting it into a drum machine is a brilliant one, because all those oscillators and that you can put into them, that's going to be brilliant for making giving you inspiration when working with rhythm tracks and that. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be really good. That I haven't heard much yet apart from the little bits that you get in the videos there, but definitely going to be an interesting product, depending on the price.
Simon, what about you?
Another PSS platform, epoxy screen size. I love drum machines. I do. I absolutely love. I still love working with them. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is interesting. Saw the screen size and thought, oh God. It brings me back to when I bought a Tempest. I only had it for about 3 months. Hated it because I couldn't work with this. When you're trying to do stuff on a drum machine, it's a small box anyway. You need some sort of... it just frustrates me. Yeah. I think it sounds great. I do. But again, if they're going to if you're going to do something, do it properly. Do it on a platform where people can actually use it and work on it. Don't put a postage stamp on it. And for me, it's the first thing I look at it cosmetically. I'm not a great fan of the size of the buttons. I accept that it is a prototype, and it may look completely different when it does hit the market. But my cosmetic bitching aside, I think it sounds okay-ish. Yeah. I'd like to hear a bit more about it. I'm sure it can do more than just sort of Quasar 808 typey sounds. But again, how much is it going to be? Because I think the IK drum machines are bloody good value. I mean, they sound great.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, if Korg are going to stick this out and it's going to be 1,200 quid, forget it.
Yeah,
forget it. I look at that and I say, man, that's got to be about 399, something like that, 400. And I say that because they're competing with the prices of what Behringer are putting out.
It's got to be around the 400-500
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, it can't be any more, because if it is, it's just, forget it. Made in Japan. So what? You know.
But it is part of the log family, so it will have some kind of expandability, and that must be
happy
appealing.
days, Rob. But at the end of the day, if we spend the extra 300 quid on that means that's the 300 quid that we couldn't spend on the Behringer RD8 when it comes out, or whatever. That's the way people are going to look at it. RD9 rather. That's the way people are going to look on it. There's a way of marketing something, and there's also a way of pricing yourself out the market. And I think now that we're talking about Korg, what they've done with the wavestate, if they do that with this, then they're just stupid.
Yeah. Cryss, you wanted me to remind you about Andrew.
Yes. So something that's been going on, and Andrew has posted about this in our Synth Network Facebook group. And let me just read the post and tell you a little bit about it. So if you guys remember, Starsky Carr had been, what do you call it, on YouTube when they had a copyright claim filed. He had a
copyright infringement, yeah.
Yes. So it had to do with a filter sweep, and if I recall correctly, it had been a Chemical Brothers song. So of course, the Chemical Brothers probably know nothing about this.
Nope.
But the record company and all this stuff are doing it. So more recently, this last week, our friend Ramsey had also done a video which had got 2 hits for a filter sweeps. And I think one again was the Chemical Brothers, if I recall, and one was some another really kind of unknown band that had got this. So this is a really ridiculous thing. It's such a common thing. It would be like, I could only imagine doing a whammy bar dip on my Strat and then having Dick Dale's record company say, hey, that's copyrighted. Whatever. So Aaron also says Chemical Brothers had nothing to do with it, is what he said, and later apologized. So this has been going on, and so Andrew's arranging this thing called February Filter Sweep, and that's why you're seeing the hashtag FFS. So he says, come join in the silliness and disruption and protest at the daft copyright stings received by the likes of Ramsey and Starsky Carr for demonstrating filter sweeps on synths. FFS February Filter Sweep. On February 1st, 2021, post a video onto YouTube of you demonstrating a filter sweep on a synth or synths of your choice. So we're getting that together. That's going to be, just over a week. So if everybody can be a part of that, this is, also... Man, I can't. I'm just like, my memory's gone. Been hanging out.
That's old age, mate.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite music guys. The record guy that's got the white hair, the guitar player. Oh, damn, what's his name? He's
Rick Beato.
Steve Martin.
Rick Beato. No. Rick Beato. So Rick Beato's been fighting a lot of this copyright stuff on YouTube as well. In fact, he had testified late last year in front of Congress about it as well. So there's some serious problems for us musicians that are getting hit by record companies, and screw these record companies.
Next time, sorry to interrupt. What happens next time I play Orc 5 on my Fairlight, put that on YouTube? Am I going to get sued by thousands of copyrights that the people have used that? It's honestly, it's the biggest load of rubbish. Absolutely. What we want to do is get that guy that made that modular with 100 oscillators and get him to do a filter sweep at full volume. That's what we want.
But the thing is, there's some comments in the chat room I'm just going to pick out. I think Max made a couple of comments here that we shouldn't... he doesn't agree with letting the Chemical Brothers off the hook. Because they're sat there on their millions, which
But they didn't instigate it, though.
They didn't instigate it, and this is my point. That I publish stuff for my company on YouTube all the time, every week, and we use copyright-free, royalty-free stock library music because it's just quick and it's simple, and I haven't got the time to do anything myself. So I just go to a library, I pick out something that suits, and 9 times out of 10 we have no issues. But with a particular tool that I use, it comes with its own built-in library of sounds, and there is one piece that we've tended to use more than others because it just kind of fits. Every time we publish a video with that in there, despite us owning the license and despite me repeatedly contacting the rights management company, because they're the people that are doing this, and saying, here's a copy of my license, I'm allowed to use this, back off, then they take it down within 24 hours and it's fine. But I keep having to do it, and it is algorithms a lot of the time. There are companies, admittedly, who will have people sat there going through, doing specific searches for things and looking for it on a human level. But a lot of it is algorithm based, nothing to do with the artist. It's rights management, it's publishing companies. That's the people that are going after it, not the artists.
Yeah, but there are quite a few artists that are really upset about this stuff.
Yes.
What's his face from the Eagles? Drummer, whatever his name is. I could probably think of every other person's name in the Eagles right now except for his name.
Don Henley.
Don Henley, yes. Yeah, that guy, he testified on the other side in that that hearing that Rick Beato did. And my gosh, like, if you want to get pissed off, listen to him. Yeah. Watch his I can't believe it. And you know, that's really upsetting. I'm gonna stop.
No, it is. You're right. And there are artists out there who think, and I think it's because maybe they are misinformed, that they feel, because like Prince did it. Okay, Prince. Well, I think Prince was kind of actively involved when some woman posted a video of her child doing something funny, and on the radio in the background is Purple Rain or something, and they clamped down on it, and then Prince went on a purge, and he said, right, anybody that's using my music, I'm gonna do what I need to do to get paid, or you're not gonna have my music. And it was just like, really? Yeah. I mean, if I'm sat there publishing copies of your music without permission, fine. But if I'm a guitarist demonstrating an amplifier and I'm going to, pull a lick off of Purple Rain, or if I'm doing, something on a synthesizer that sounds a bit like, maybe I'm playing an Oberheim sound like 1999, are you going to pull that just because I'm, there's fair use policies for this kind of thing. A lot of it is algorithm based, a little bit is artist based or human, but it is, and as Andrew says in the chat room here, we are forgetting how poor Prince and Don Henley were. It is. But what's the root of the problem? What is the root of the problem? Because
common sense. That's the root of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. But so many artists are being screwed over, and this is a fact that so many artists are being screwed over by the online system, whether it's streaming on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or wherever, because the deals that they've got with their labels are detrimental to the artist. And so if I'm an artist and I'm only getting point something of a % of every stream, like Gary Newman piped up the other week, Our Friends Electric in 1 year got over millions of plays. Yeah. And 37 quid in his pocket from this one particular streaming service. Well, that's wrong, because why do you get paid 37 quid? Now, Gary's not short of a few bob, I'm sure, but he crowdfunds every album he does now. He uses these kind of advanced payment services. He's not minted, but the system, it's inherent in the system. That artists get screwed over. So in a way, I don't blame Don Henley for getting upset about not getting paid because he's probably trying to pull in some cash because he can't go touring with the Eagles anymore. So it's a very complex thing, isn't it? But
and one more point is, you can't just reduce the problem to it's the algorithms, because the algorithms are not sentient. There's one thing that's behind the algorithm rhythms, and that's the artists and the record companies.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are putting these things into play. So you can't blame it on just the system. It's the people that are in putting the system into play.
Yeah.
There must be a threshold for these algorithms. There must be, like, going as far as a filter sweep and that is.
I think different people use different algorithms or different methods. So I've heard that there are companies that use algorithms that go and find stuff and then dump it in an in tray, a virtual in tray of a human being that will then sit there and go through each one and say, "Yep, that's a strike, and that one's not, and that one is, and that one's not," and others that just let it all get handled by the algorithms. But it's a very contentious issue. But let's get back to the original point here. Ramsey did a filter sweep on a Roland module, and Starsky did something else similar on a different thing. It was a filter sweep. It wasn't even in the context of a song or a performance of the thing that they claim is a copyright infringement of. Because, great, so the Chemical Brothers produce a song where everything stops and all you hear is this filter sweep. What suddenly gives them, or any artist, the right to claim that? It's just silly. So yes, I think we should all get behind that. I don't know what I'll use. I'll probably just use a 303 or something, or a TD3, and do a big filter sweep on that, and we'll see. I'm used to it now. But
it's not going to really work on any DX stuff, is it?
No, quite. All right, snark. I'll tell you what, though. Here's another thing I just remembered I was going to mention. And Randy showed this on his video, that when you get this copyright infringement notice or copyright claim notice, it's not a bad mark against you or your account. They're just saying that you've used a piece of music that they believe infringes on their copyright without permission. You've used it, and they will therefore be able to monetize your video in certain territories. And when I looked into this on behalf of my company, the territories they were wanting to monetize it in was something like Papua New Guinea and some far-flung distant places. Everything else it didn't touch, but I still disputed it. And you can dispute it, as long as you can prove in writing and explain what it is that you're doing, and just hit the dispute button. It generally, I find, 99 times out of 100. In fact, in terms of my company, I've not got any outstanding copyright claims. They've all been resolved within the 30-day limit. One, I remember, didn't get resolved. The rights company didn't come back to me. And after 30 days, YouTube say, okay, well, they didn't challenge it. It's yours. Off you go. So there is a process in place for, getting back your monetization. Or as Randy points out in his video, he doesn't really monetize this kind of stuff because it wouldn't generate him anything significant anyway. But you can challenge it, and you can kind of clear your name, should we say?
No, but it pushed a few buttons though, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and it would me too.
Yeah.
But here's a funny thing: if you want to try filter sweeps on YouTube, turn on the subtitles feature and see how it works. Trust me.
Robbie's version of a filter sweep is actually going to be what's that new one that you got, the V something, VS1, VF1 something?
Oh, the FS1R.
I don't know, whatever the format one is, and he's going to sweep through vowels.
Yes. I did when I did the MS101 comparison with Simon's SH101. I was doing filter sweeps, and the subtitles were coming up with wow, and it was actually coming up on the subtitles. It was funny as heck. It was Peter Vogel that pointed that one out to me. It was bizarre. Anyway, yes, Andrew, thanks for that. Please share it again on our Facebook page, and we'll get as many people involved in that as possible, just to prove a point. Thanks for bringing that up. Right, we've got one more Korg thing because we are getting almost close to 3/4 of the way through the show. So this is an odd one. I don't see this taking off or being in any way usable personally. Ooh. Oh, we've lost Chris. Chris is. But let's do this one. This is Korg Gadget VR. Now, I've just shared this without the audio. Hang on a second. Let me just bring this back in.
You don't like this?
I do not like that. I just don't see the point. I'm sorry.
I think this could be the future of everything. This further.
You
down
reckon?
the line.
Let's have a look at the video, so people can see exactly what this looks like. So there you go. You have your headset, and you pop it on, and then all of your gadget tools appear in front of you. Now, granted, VR demos do not work very well. So there you go. That's Gadget VR. Let's bring Cryss back into the stream. So Gadget VR, it is Korg's gadget tools represented in a virtual reality world. You put on your headset. You have whatever hand controllers your system uses, and you interact with the tools in a virtual sense. I don't like it. I don't think it's going to catch on. But Ben seems to think that it's a good thing. Explain why.
Well, I think as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh wow! Now this is real virtual studio technology." It's. I can imagine how far have we come from like Space Invaders and stuff to where we are now. So if that's the start of virtual studio environments, say, I know we have that anyway, but in the kind of virtual reality format. Where's it going to end up? Are you going to end up in, are you going to end up in Abbey Road? You're going to be able to hire in all the virtual synths that you want. You've got a Jupiter 8 next to you. You've got an ARP 2500 over here. And you can physically go up to them and tweak them. There's no more like, oh, well, the interface is a bit crap on that and this isn't that. Because it would feel like you were using the physical things. I think that...
But it won't, though. It can't. How can you grab a knob in VR?
Well, you're not going to feel it, but like it's going to be, it's going to be more intuitive than using a mouse, isn't it? Because, I presume.
Personally, I think it's going to have the same kind of. I mean, I've got VR downstairs, albeit just a PlayStation VR, and interacting with objects is just. It's not a real experience because you have these controllers with like little triggers or buttons on them. You can't use your hand at the moment anyway. You can't use your hand to physically pick up an object and feel like you've got that object and be able to get the nuance of control in there. I mean, can you imagine trying to, you just want to add a little bit more reverb, but you're trying to do.
I'm sure it could be. I'm sure in time it could be.
In time. Absolutely, I'm sure it will. And what needs to happen at the moment is we need to stop trying to use VR to work in a world as we know it. We need to come up with a new paradigm, a new control surface that is for VR controls. Case in point, when Nokia, and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but bear with me, Nokia were trying to catch up with Apple with touchscreen phones. And their first touchscreen phones were using a non-touchscreen operating system, the Symbian operating system. It had never been designed to be used with touch devices. So you had a touch screen phone that was using a button and cursor designed operating system, and it just didn't work. It worked, but it didn't work as nicely as iOS, which was an operating system that had been designed from the ground up to be used with a touch surface. And that's what needs to happen here. We need to come up with an interface, a virtual interface that works with the VR technology we have now. In 5, 10, 15 years' time, we might have complete, kind of these gloves that we just pop on, and they've got haptic feedback and all that, and we can feel the tiny, controls. But that's just my.
I just
opinion.
Like I'm in here working, you know, when I'm doing stuff, and I know where everything is, and that's my workflow. If you can do that in a virtual format and be able to do that wherever you are, then you're like in your studio environment wherever you are, and the things are placed where you place them, not in a menu on a screen. You turn around and you walk over there and it's there.
Yeah,
I think that's a brilliant thing for music.
Have you guys seen that film Demolition Man?
yeah.
Well, a bit where he sits down and Sandra Bullock says, "Right, we're going to have sex now." And he puts that thing on his head, and all of a sudden it goes vroom, 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 and he's banging away, and he's got That's how it has to be. Because if you watch that again, just watch it again, as it's panning round, it goes, and they can't do it any quicker than that because the latency on it is so slow. They're like years away from it. Nice idea, but they're light years away from it.
And it's...
And it looks like something they've ripped off from DJI, by the way.
Oh, right.
Seriously,
I'm
with the
not familiar.
drones.
Yeah.
Like DJI, I've got exactly the same thing. It looks identical. If you put one next to each other, you'd probably pick one up by mistake, other than one says Korg and DJI on it.
Yeah, I don't think... I think this is being designed for... what's that? The VR platform that's Oculus Rift. So I think that's its primary thing. But I imagine that because Korg have got a habit of doing stuff with Nintendo, haven't they? And we've had some of their synths on DSs and things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something. I mean, there are no VR consoles out there apart from PlayStation, so nobody else.
It's an
has
odd
gone
thing
down
to
that
do
road.
at the moment, where everyone's going. Everyone's bringing out reissues of stuff because it's got user interaction, because it's got buttons on it and things, and all of a sudden Korg are going out with a virtual. Maybe they're doing it just to see how the market lies.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think it's going to be in our lifetime, but when that type of thing does happen, I mean, it's going to be fantastic. I don't have to come out here an hour before in this weather and heat this bloody place up. I can just sit at home with VR goggles on and hey.
I'm going to throw over to Cryss now and ask him his thoughts, but isn't half, or maybe more than half, the fun of doing what we do the physical interaction with the instrument, the feedback that we get from using real knobs, real keys, real controllers, being able to move bodily, to do stuff? Isn't that the thing? Cryss, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there is something to that, and a mixed approach, it would be augmented reality would probably be the way to go. Something I've seen other people say as well is to have like a controller. We've talked a lot about studio controllers, whether like mixing interfaces or soft synth controllers, and we've debated the idea quite a bit, but that would be one area where you could have a certain arrangement of knobs, buttons, and sliders. And in an augmented reality thing, you wouldn't even need to have screens for it, so you would actually be able to save some cost on it. But then as you're looking at your controller, it will overlay where the levels currently are at for whatever parameter. It'll have the parameter name, next to the knob, so you can see what you're doing. You still have the physical interface that you can see because it's augmented reality rather than virtual reality. And then also where it would be a great benefit is I can't afford a separate studio computer from my work computer. Everything is all in one for me, and so I have next to the screen here a MacBook. It's got a 16-inch screen, which is great for a laptop, but it's still a 16-inch screen, and compared to your guys' iMacs, it's small. And so to have, in addition to that controller arrangement, to be able to project in my vision my entire DAW, but instead of it being, from my perspective here, instead of it being this wide, if I could have it spreading across the room and be able to see my full track and then also all of my tracks, and be working in that virtual environment where I'm not just stuck to this little letterbox, but I can look up and I can look over and I can see things. Yeah. The visual of what's going on. Plus, I could be having plugins open, so maybe I've got my huge, DAW tracks here, and if I wanted, I can access the plugins with the physical controller, or visually see them if I just turn to the right a little bit. And it would be I think would be a very natural thing, and you're not going to suffer so much of the latency that Simon was talking about with the virtual reality, because you're still seeing a room and things. The overlays of stuff may be a little bit slow to change, but that would be a really interesting way to do it. I do expect that, I don't know how many years down the road, but that's what will become a normal thing, is rather than you being stuck to the screen size that you have with your laptop, that you can expand that. So if you can imagine being at, you're sitting at Starbucks, and you've got your huge DAW rolled out, and nobody else can see it, but you're just sitting there off in your own world making music, drinking some coffee.
Do you know another? In fact, Marshall made a comment, and it sort of threw me on the idea of, let's say, look, we're talking about NAMM, and there's some new kit out there, and there was a VR way of trying new kit out in your own, demoing new kit, so you could use it that way. I mean, that would be a terrific use for it. But again, in just adding on what Cryss said, when they get the tech right, then I think it will be something that will be another field for all the manufacturers to go onto. But it just concerns me at the moment that the tech there that they showed on that video was not something I think is going to get everyone to.
We mustn't forget that most of us, if we're using computers in our music, will have a DAW, a whole bunch of plugins, and all of that stuff uses CPU resource, and then we're going to throw in a VR program that's going to have to run on the same computer as you're running the software on, even if it's just a dedicated program. We're now increasing the load on the machine as well. So I know that we're seeing advances in computer power. Particularly, if we look at the M1 chips, I saw somebody the other day running like 20 instances of a really kind of CPU heavy synth with virtually no impact at all on the CPU time. We're getting better, but we're adding just another thing onto our boxes, and it's then going to be only for the people who can afford the big, expensive, fast machines. You
could imagine that as this stuff would become more common, that, for instance, like my older MacBooks had an integrated GPU, and now this one has a switchable one. And so if it's tackling some, Final Cut Pro, it might switch to the dedicated graphics unit. And so you can see as things get, again, as you said, get better, get smaller, that there'd be room in the chassis for yet another chipset that would be just for a graphics processor for augmented reality applications.
Because the PlayStation VR comes with a separate box that has to plug into, and I'm not entirely sure what's in that box, but you can't use the VR without it, so there must be some kind of added processing power that's built into that. So it's, again, I think Simon says we're many years away from it, but it's probably going to happen.
I'll wait till Elon Musk releases it, then we know it's going to be.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so there you go. Korg Gadget VR was another one of their demonstrations at NAMM this year. I think, there's one more Korg piece of news. We'll just breeze through this one because we are running out of time rapidly. This is the news that you can, if you order an ARP Odyssey FSQ, you can get a nice little sequencer unit with it, and this is what it looks like. So I can't remember the exact qualification for that. Is this it's a limited edition bundle that basically puts these two together, so you can choose your ARP Odyssey, whether it's the white face, the black, or the black and the orange. And you'll get an FSQ package which includes this lovely little sequencer unit as well. Any thoughts on this one? I mean, this really doesn't float my boat, but
has anybody actually played this full size version? Because I really didn't like the one with the mini keys. I just wondered if the keyboard felt better. Apart from being just bigger, does it feel nicer? Is it a different key bed? Or
not touched one, so I couldn't say.
Right.
Gak had one in. I played it. It was a long time ago. It didn't feel horrible with that. Yeah.
I think the little one does. It's
Yeah, the little one, and the little one distorts. Someone A-B'd one, and it wasn't too good.
Right.
It's actually it's the one mono synth that I've never really got on with. I just can't. Something about it, I just don't like the sound. I like pretty much every other, big synth that ARP have done, but the Odyssey is just not for me.
Yeah.
No, I just never knew. It's never really floated my boat, to be honest with you.
No.
And again, how much is this thing going to be? Because it's
Exactly.
limited.
It's a limited package, so it's basically a Korg SQ1 with limited livery. It's the black and the orange livery. That's the only thing that's limited about it. The package is limited. So after they've run out of these, then it's just a regular Odyssey.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
It depends on the price, doesn't it?
Yeah,
if
it does.
If they're going to ask $2,000,
I can't imagine.
it's too
I
much.
honestly can't imagine it's going to be huge. I mean, it is essentially just an SQ1, so you just got to weigh up. Do you want to pay for the paint job? And there is no real thing. There's nothing to say what it.
I agree with Ben. I reckon that's got $2,000 or thereabouts
You
written
reckon?
all over that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a lot.
Chris, any thoughts on this?
No.
No. Okay.
We're done with Korg.
We're done
Yeah.
with Korg. Shall we? Let's look at some of the other things that came out. So this one, Chris brought to my attention because I missed this on the day. And got to find the link. Where's the link? Oh gosh, where is it? Oh, it's that. Yes, because it's Vimeo. So Roland announced. They had this kind of like half-hour synth talk thing where they talked about some of their existing products, and the one thing that they showed and revealed.
60. The Juno 60
Was
was,
the
a
Juno
polyphonic synthesizer released in 1982 and was one of the first synthesizers to incorporate a digital circuit, a DCO,
And-
in the oscillator to
Yeah.
keep sounds.
So basically, Juno 60 coming to Roland Cloud. Chris, did you happen to hear? I didn't hear when this might be coming.
I couldn't find any information
No.
about when it was going to be released. In fact, Tom at Synth Anatomy, which if you guys didn't see last week's show, Tom from Synth Anatomy was on and joined us, and that's my primary go-to. But even in his article, they just said coming soon. I don't know why it's not already here, but let's be honest, with Roland Cloud, we wouldn't be able to log in to use it anyway. So
I've had some ongoing issues, and this is just typical. So for the last couple of weeks, every time I start my computer up, Roland Cloud pops up and says, please sign in every day.
Yeah.
And so I logged it as a ticket because this wasn't normal behaviour. Oh yeah, we'll look into that. And they come back a day later and say, we're going to send it off to our developers. Okay, and this was like 3 weeks ago, and I chased them up, and no, we still haven't heard anything. So you know what I did?
Yeah.
I uninstalled it, reinstalled it, and guess what? Problem has gone away.
interesting, yeah, because they're having problems with a lot of people online now. I mean, KVR and was it now Gear Sluts? There's a
call
lot of
them,
people that are complaining about the same thing that you were having, and I have been having a problem too. Like every time you try to log into it, it takes forever. It doesn't save your password, all that kind of stuff. But back to the Juno 60.
Yeah.
Should be kind of an interesting one. It's not wildly different than a 106. I think the high pass filter on the 106 has a bass boost on the 0 position, but they've added that as a switch to the Juno 60, which is nice, like that. And of course, the Juno 60 had a little bit faster envelopes as well. So I'm looking forward to this. I wish they had done something that was a little bit. I kind of feel like this should have been out last year
versus having to tune a stand.
Oops, sorry. Yeah.
Because they all they did. So I think the year before, was it 2019, they did the 303, and then 2020 they did the 606, and they should have really added this. They'd already come out with the boutique version, and I know everybody was thinking, at least I was thinking, like, shouldn't we have this in cloud already? You've already done the ACB for it. So, there's a lot of people that keep writing into them, and they keep saying, we're putting it on our list and stuff, but everybody's wondering, like, where's the Jupiter 6 and the Jupiter 4 and the JX8P.
Yeah.
Some of the basics.
The 4 and the 6 would have got my attention. That would have certainly gone, whoa, yes. Now I'll put up with having to sign in every day, although you don't have to sign in every day. But yeah, Ben.
Yeah, it's an excellent addition, and like Cryss says, I think it is a bit late, but it's also refreshing that they've historically Roland they have these like trends in technology formats. It's always done that, and it seems as though now that they've come out with the Zencore, they might have ditched the ACB stuff, but this is a good indicator that there's more to come on that, and things like the System 8 and that won't be left stranded in the water like other synths
it was nice to see the plug out.
I think it's a great addition, and it's nice to see that they're sticking with the ACB for the immediate future, if nothing else.
Simon, I can't remember if you have Roland Cloud or not.
No, I don't.
So,
but I think it's good. Again, because Juno 60s are outpricing the people that really want them, and it's one of the most intuitive synths that I've ever used. The demo that I found, in fact, I talking about Starsky, I watched his demo on the 106, Zencore 106, and then saw the same demo on the Juno 60, and I think they both what I heard of them, the emulation sounded excellent. So the more the merrier, really.
Yeah. And of course, we can't help but notice that you have a Juno 60 right at the very back of your infinite synth cave.
Actually, there's two. There's I can't point them. There's the one that's one there, and there's one there. Yeah, but I mean, I love the Juno 60s. I mean, that and the 106. They're sort of timeless sound. So
yeah, definitely.
I don't quite follow how the plug out works. Is this part of the System 8 thing, isn't it? Where you've got a little box and. Yeah, I mean, again, I guess that's second best to having a Juno 60, but an eighth of the price, so great.
Yeah,
I think the System 8 and the Juno 60 will go great together. I think that'll be a great combo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the nice things too is that I've got a 106 and I love it, and it just fits onto tracks so easily. You don't have to massage it or anything. The tone of it just works. But having the flexibility of the extra envelope for Roland Cloud or the System 8 really makes it gives a lot of new life to a very simple synthesizer that it's pretty limited palette. It's just that palette sounds so good, but when you add even just one more envelope to it, it becomes very interesting, very fun to create patches for.
One thing I will ask, I mean, again, this is something that I don't know. I thought to subscribe to it was £80 a year, but it's not. It's £20 a month or £200 a year. Is that correct?
200 a year, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's quite pricey, but I think now what have they got? 50, 60 synthesizers that are part of the collection. It's only a matter of time before they get the Jupiter 4, Jupiter 6, and all the SH5s and God knows what else.
It's so stuff there now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I plumped for the annual subscription when I went for it last year. And was kind of, am I making the right decision? And here I am. I'm a few months away from renewal, and I don't regret it.
But these are add-ons that you have to pay for, right? I mean, when the Juno 60 comes out, it's a freebie. If
you're a pro subscriber,
right,
or a core, because there are 3 levels, aren't there? I think Pro gets everything. Right. Or sorry, Ultimate gets everything.
Yeah,
so
Ultimate.
I'm getting mixed up with my BBC SOs. Ultimate is everything,
right.
And then there's a mid level that gets most things, and then there's this free level that gets some of the basic stuff, and then you can. But you can if you want to. You don't have to subscribe. You can just go in and buy the plugins, and they're usually like 150, 200 for the individual plugin. But of course, the benefit is if you're an Ultimate subscriber, every year you get to keep 2. Whether you stay with Roland Cloud or not, you can add them to your lifetime license list, and your lifetime license lasts.
And is that Ultimate the £200 a year jobby? Is it, or is that?
That's the Ultimate. I think you get 2 a year with Ultimate and 1 a year with the.
No.
I thought
They run programs every once in a while. So I was on the original Play 2 for Life, where you got 2, and then now recently it's over now. I think. They had a Play for Life, I believe it was called, where they did for a limited time. if you're on it, you'll get at the end of, or actually it already put it on my account, you get 2 more for free, which is really the only reason that I would be on the subscription. Is like if there's some value that I'll walk away with, and it actually ends up being cheaper than buying just a single license or 2 licenses for those, because that would be about $300 US, but for something around like $200, I get the ultimate subscription, and then I walk away with two of my favorites. So
Yeah.
if
Do
you
you know
can,
if they released that as a hardware and called that a Juno 61, I'd buy one of them.
Yeah, it's very true. Tempo Roboto was asking in the chat about how much these things cost. So let's so you have Core, $2.99 a month, and that's real basic. Then you have Pro, and then you have Ultimate, and so and this is all US dollars, so they convert. So yearly subscriptions will obviously get you a bit more value for money. So it's not 12 times the 1 month price. So Ultimate Edition is $199 for a year, which I think I paid like 180 something.
Rob, what do you get for Core? All right, you've explained Ultimate. What's Core then? What
Core gets you Xenology,
yeah,
and a few sound packs and a few wave expansions, and that's it.
Right.
Pro gets you all of that up to, so you get the 808, the D50, and then some of these kind of sample library titles, and then everything from the TR-606 in that list down, so that's the 106, the 8, the 909, the 3, but all of that stuff comes with Ultimate. So Pro kind of gets you, a D50 and an 808, which I suppose is nice. And then, these kind of, the anthology collections actually, it's not bad because it's sample libraries of things like D50s and JXs. It's not bad value for money, to be honest, in my personal opinion, because it gets you quite a lot. Anyway, so there you go. That's Roland Cloud, and Juno 60 coming soon is all we can say. I'm looking forward to it.
And we'll be looking forward to comparing this to the Arturia version that just came out.
Of course, yeah.
I will
absolutely.
say that what little that Roland played off of their video, to me felt, even though mine's a 106 and not a 60, it felt a little bit closer to how mine sounds than the Arturia version. And I like the Arturia version. It sounds good too. But it'll be nice to have some different flavors.
Yeah, choice, absolutely. Choice is good. Right, we've only about 10 minutes left, so let's see what we can squeeze in before we go. Let's choose this one. Oh, let's do Behringer. Come on, we've kind of alluded to this. So a couple of things from Behringer to talk about today. I guess the first one we should discuss is the announcement that they're doing the Blue Marvin and the Grey Meanie limited edition versions of their ARP 2600. Can you hear that? Did you hear that? Yeah. Oh, that's good. Right, so I did click the right thing.
Dan here with Behringer, introducing the
Gotta say, don't like Dan's hair.
Grey Meanie and Blue Marvin.
I don't.
So you got Blue Marvin and the Grey Meanie. I think the only difference between these is the colour. However, they have added some stuff to this. So this is, you get a little bit extra. They've got the built-in spring reverb, which, am I right, you didn't get with the original?
Correct.
The Behringer 2600?
Yeah, the original has a digital reverb.
Right.
I believe it's a spring emulation, but it's a digital one.
Right. Yeah, so you get a little bit more than you did before, which I'm guess is going to piss off some early adopters of the 2600. Maybe not, I don't know. Price at $699, shipping begins in a few weeks' time. So that's also nice to hear from Behringer. They're actually announcing something that's going to ship fairly close to the...
How much is the other one?
$599.
Is it five? Yeah. So it's $100 more, but you're getting... some extra bits for it, so I guess just makes it even more appealing.
I think I'd rather have the Blue Marvin than the standard black and orange one. And it's weird that they're saying that they've improved components and added this spring reverb.
I wonder why though. With the
hold on
coming
though.
Out.
That's so there's been some confusion. I keep hearing this repeated. They've not upgraded any of the components except for the spring reverb and changed the color of the slider LEDs.
Right.
So,
okay. Right.
Depending on how you feel about things, I mean, I think this really comes down to what color do you want to look at. I like the multicolored LEDs.
Yeah.
But as far as spring reverb goes, and this is something that like kind of, I hear synthesists talk about spring reverbs a lot, but maybe not having as much experience with them as guitar players, small tank spring reverbs sound like crap. And I don't think they sound good at all. Like once you hear a nice, like at least 3 spring long body spring reverb, it's incredible. But I don't know how this one will sound, but I'm not usually such a fan of little short tanks that they use in synthesizers. Like I don't really like the way the grandmother sounds. It's spring reverb. So we'll see. We'll see how it sounds.
The digital spring reverbs must sound passable, mustn't they? They must sound. It must sound reasonably. Okay.
Sometimes they sound better than crappy short spring reverbs.
Have you ever done your Prophet 6 spring reverb test, Ben?
The banging.
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really good.
I've got a Marshall keyboard amp down in my garage, which the front panel is slowly rotting away. But that's got a big old spring reverb in it, and it just used to tickle me every time I moved that thing.
So I tell you, I've had some really great spring reverbs. I've had the old Fender standalone ones, all tube spring reverbs. I've had some amps like the Top Hat Ambassador that have just gorgeous spring reverbs. I've had some, I have a 1978 Princeton reverb, and it's got a relatively small tank compared to something like a twin reverb or, one of the standalones. But even something like that is going to be better than what you get in the Korg or Behringer. I mean, I saw a picture of the Korg full-size one, and it was just ridiculously little dinky thing. And even my Princeton, which would sound a lot better than that, when you compare it to even some of the nice digital emulations like Strymon on the Flint and the Volante have really great spring emulations. The thing that you don't get out of those is exactly that effect of like kicking your amp and having it crash, which it can be quite fun.
Yeah. But there you go. So that's Blue Meanie and Blue Marvin Grey Meanie. I always go Blue Meanie because that's the Beatles, isn't it? And that's it's ingrained. But yeah, they're available from next month for $100 more than the other one. It's not something I don't think I'll be investing in, but yeah, nice to see.
Although Robbie, if they did make a Blue Meanie version, you and I would be all over it, right?
And especially if it had the appropriate paint job. Absolutely. I think so. So there you go. That's in February for $699 US. The other Behringer news is, of course, that they have given us a bit more insight into the Pro 800, and there's an engineer's update. So it looks like they've got kind of fully working prototypes.
Hello, it's Adam from the German offices of Behringer.
I'm not going to go through the whole audio there. You can go and find this on Behringer's YouTube channel.
Development process of the Pro 800.
But it looks like they're some way in, and they've got they seem to have got it down. It looks like it's ready. I couldn't possibly comment on the sound, not having ever really kind of spent time with the originals on which it was based. But yeah, I think this is one of Behringer's that interests me, just to get that sound, if it does get that sound, if you know what I mean. Let's go to our Prophet guy, Simon. Does this interest you?
Yeah, from a point of view of it, what they're doing, but it doesn't interest me to buy one. But look, even if it doesn't sound like a Prophet 600, if it sounds good, then that's good enough, really, I think. I mean, interesting from a technical point of view that they're having problems with the auto-tune, which doesn't surprise me. But I don't quite understand why they're putting the Gleegly stuff on it, because I
was just going to put this up.
The Gleegly, I think, ruins the original. It does stuff to the original that it just loses a little bit of its character. So I actually took the Gleegly off of my one, and it's stock.
Okay.
Yeah, it improves the envelopes, because for the people that don't know, the Prophet 600, it's not a Prophet 5. It's yes, it uses the same chips and that, but the envelopes are all software driven, and when you start changing the envelopes, you can actually hear it pixelating type of thing. Yeah, sort of goes up in steps. It's very slow. They improved it dramatically on the T8. You wouldn't notice a difference on the T8, but with the Gleegly actually smooths the edges out of the envelopes on the Prophet 600. So, but great things they've done with it. They've made it 8 voice.
Yes,
Brilliant.
indeed. Yeah,
You know, great. I wish Arturia would do that with the what's his name, Brute?
Polybrute. Yeah.
Polybrew, yeah.
Yeah, let's not go down that path again. Chris,
Yes, let's.
Yeah, no. Chris, P8 Pro 800. Yeah,
Yeah, it looks great. I kind of wondered in that video when I listened to it, it sounded like something was clipping on the first half of the video or so.
Right.
But once you got to the end of it, the sounds of it were really nice and smooth. And so, you know, I don't have any Prophets here. You know, I had borrowed a Prophet 6 for quite a while, and that's a great synthesizer. I really like it. So, I mean, something like this would be tempting if you could get something close to a vintage Prophet sound. Plus, you got 8 voices, which is fantastic. I'm so glad they did that.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't mind having one of those Poly 800 modules to sit here on the desk.
Yeah. Yeah, it does interest me, this one. Ben, does this...
Again on price, I think they're talking about 799, 699, 799. That's brilliant pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben.
Super price. I don't really need it. I've got the Pro 1 and I've got the Prophet 6, so I don't know. Well, I don't. It just
I take your point.
It'd just be duplication, wouldn't it? But I do think it's a cracking device, and it like Simon said, the 8 voices in such a small unit as well. You know, that Arturia, I know we're not going down that route, but claiming that it'd be too much to squeeze in, it'd make it too expensive, too heavy. They've done it in this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
You know, So, yeah, it's great.
Another blast from the past has been reborn or reimagined, maybe, by our friends across the channel at UVI, and they have announced and released, it's available now, PX Memories. Now, PX is kind of it's the range of PX branded instruments in their library are single synthesizer explorations of synthesizers that generally are prototypes or were prototypes, and this is a prototype memory Moog, if I'm not mistaken, and it's the Lintronics NAMM, which they did, and it's essentially kind of like a memory Moog. So I guess this has a fairly limited audience, but at the moment it's on offer. It's €49. I mean, you know, if you're looking for these sounds in samples, albeit these are, it's quite a nice little thing, and of course it has the typical, you know, UVI interface, which is always, you know, really well designed, nice and clean. Comes with a whole bunch of features like arpeggiators and all sorts of different effects built in, with this lovely scripted interface which works in the UVI workstation and UVI Falcon. Let's have a quick listen to this, shall we? Just call up their very brief promo. Now, this is deeply sampled. I noticed somebody on one of the UVI forums saying, how come this takes up like 30 odd gigabytes of space when their Synth Anthology takes up about 12? And that's because Synth Anthology, they're sampling like every 2 or 3 notes. This one, they really deeply sample, all at flat lossless encoding as well. So it's effectively a 54 gig library that's compressed losslessly. 353 presets divided into 16 categories. You know, the UVI sampling is really, really good. So if you're looking for a sampled analog synthesizer that you don't often see a hardware version of this. This is right up your street, and it's €49. You know, has anybody bought this? Anybody thinking of buying it?
Not yet. At that price, I wouldn't mind snapping it up before it goes back to its full thing. You know.
Well, it's only $79 at the full price, so I mean, even then it's
but
a bargain.
But the thing, I understand that the NAMM memory Moog is an improved memory Moog.
Yeah.
It fixes some of the the problems that was with the memory Moog. So if this is sample based, it might as well be the original one, mightn't it? Because it wouldn't have those problems anyway.
It's I'm just trying to pick up the all the other PX stuff, because they did the Voyetra. I think that was a PX one, and that's a really nice little library. And I think they did they did the P10 and the Apollo and the V8, and all of these are just like €79 each, single synthesizer, but some really nice sampling in there. I mean, I think it's great value for money, particularly at the introductory price. Cryss, you're a Moog guy, should I say?
Yeah, I absolutely am, and I love the sound of Moogs. But when it comes to the memory Moog, I'm a little bit puzzled. When I think about the early '80s polysynths, they sound so great, like the Jupiter, or stuff like the OBX or Prophet 5. Those class of synthesizers, and even many of them using the same CEM, what was it, 3340s or something?
Yeah,
very similar. But the memory Moog, when I hear memory Moogs, I hear like really bad crunchy solid state distortion whenever I hear one, that I kind of feel like it's the worst sounding of the early '80s polysynths, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd be curious for what Simon would say about the comparison of early '80s polysynths, since he has them to compare. But I just have never liked the sound of it. And again, maybe I just haven't heard the right one or whatever. But just anecdotally listening to stuff online, it's never been one that I'd want.
No. Simon, do you have an original memory Moog?
Yes.
Yes, of course you do.
Of course I do. But I can't make a comment. I mean, because I haven't compared it to this. I think my comments on this is pretty much what Ben said. For 49 quid, it's great. A bit memory thirsty, and a very, very, very cheap alternative to getting a memory Moog.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very familiar with UVI stuff, and the level of detail they go into with their sampling, and the quality they go into. You probably aren't going to get a better one unless you get a fully modelled one, which I don't think anyone has done or plans to do.
I think all of these virtual emulations are great. I just wish there was someone came out with a common piece of hardware that had potentiometers on it that you could just assign CCs to every piece of software on them, because I look at that and I just think, again, just what Roland did with the Juno 60s. Wow, look at the improvements on it. I just want to get hands on with it. I don't want to go onto a trackpad and go on one half of it and click through. Then I have to come out of that screen and go to the center part.
Yeah,
that would really frustrate me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, great.
I mean, one great thing with the UVI stuff is that every control on the scripted thing can be MIDI learned, so you can whatever control that you've got that sends CC, you can just map it, and I find that it works really well with the Arturia controllers and the knobs and faders there.
Because I think Starsky, again going back to his Juno 106, I think he got his Moog Sub 37 hooked up to the Roland Cloud somehow, and was changing the cutoff and stuff. All right. Just using that, which I thought, well, yeah, it's a great idea. But if you're doing that, what I would want is again, some sort of piece of hardware, and just to. I'm very old fashioned. I like the interaction with that. Really.
You surprised me, Simon. All right. Well, let's do this last one, because this kind of seamlessly segues into this. This is kind of interesting. So there's been a Model 15 Moog Modular synth on iOS for a while now, and they have now released it with this universal update, which means that you can now run it on macOS Big Sur. whether you've got an M1 chip or not. It's part of this slow but steady move to merge macOS and iOS into this kind of universal system. I don't own this one. I own a few of the Moog virtual synths, but only because I don't know why. I just bought them because they're Moog and I thought they were going to be good. I love Moog as an instrument. However, this has got to be good, hasn't it? This ability to run a plug-in either on iOS or macOS, whichever you choose, and what have you. Anybody thoughts on this?
I wish there was a VST version of it. It's just audio units at the minute.
It
isn't
is,
it?
yes.
Yeah,
because it's the Mac.
That kind of rules me out a little bit there, but.
Well, you're on Mac, aren't you?
I'm on Mac, but I can't use audio units in Cubase, can I? I've got to use Logic, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it? Oh, okay. I thought it would support audio units.
No, I think it's just VST in that. Yeah, so a little bit disappointing there. Unless
does any DAW support audio units other than Logic? Because I just use Logic and Reason. I know Reason doesn't support audio units, but then Reason doesn't support VST3s either. But is there any? Are there any DAWs that support them? Must be, surely.
Synth says it's a great app for your iPhone.
Yeah. I've got, what have I got on here? Trying to remember now. I've got Animoog. I've got where is it? The Model D. I've got a couple of others on there as well. Filtertron and a few other bits, and they are really good. If that's your thing. For me, that's just sitting in a hotel room when I'm bored, on a work trip and just messing around with it. That's it. I really had, I've said this many times before, I really had high hopes for mobile music making. It just doesn't appeal to me, although I know it does appeal to others. Tempo Roboto says Ableton supports, and it's true, it does.
Studio One does as well now, apparently.
Okay, yeah. And Aaron says that Steinberg doesn't care about audio units, which is probably true. And Jim Glue says Studio One does now. So that's I just wasn't sure that audio units were an exclusive thing to Logic, and clearly they're not. But anyone else got any thoughts on this before we wrap things up? It's nice to see.
Two things. I wish it had been the miniMoog app first, because I have that. I'm just Robbie, just like you. I hate doing the iOS apps, but it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to have this on the in Logic. And so I'm thinking, they're not. It's not terribly expensive for the Model 15 one. I think it's $30.
Yeah, it's not.
But they do have half price sales every so often. So I'm going to pick up this one when it goes down to $15. And then I'm really hoping that they'll get out the miniMoog app pretty soon, because I would actually use that. I tried out the Softtube miniMoog, and I didn't really care for it. I have a few others like the Arturia, but it's... Max says, careful there, Chris, you might get a copyright strike from the Chemical Brothers. Well played, sir.
We could do... Come on, Simon, you must have it.
Sounds like a load of stylophones, you guys are going.
But actually, if you look at it, it's a lovely thing, and the fact that you can buy the app for
but it
30.
It looks like the Behringer one.
Nasty. But yeah, the fact that you can buy that app for what is it? Is it $29.99?
Yeah.
And then you can use it across platform, iOS, macOS. If somebody was to bring out a Moog 15 plugin, you're looking, if it was an Arturia edition, it'd be $150. So this is interesting. I think it's an interesting development that
I think it's one way for you guys to get thrown off of a coach or a train, just sitting there with your iPhone stylophones.
But of course, you can use the iOS versions within iOS compatible audio units, like GarageBand. You can use it as a plugin within that, so it's not just a single synth thing. You can use it.
I wish you could do that with Vogel's Fairlight one.
You can, I think.
I'd love to know how.
Actually no. I think what you do is you run it as a kind of a separate app and you feed it in. What's he got there?
He's got the theme.
Oh yeah, but you can run the audio through Interapp Audio or something into.
Right. No, but just to have it up there as a VST,
yes,
nice. I know you can do it with the Arturia thing, but Peter's one's just a lot more there and ready to go, really.
But unfortunately, do not expect anything more out of that app.
No.
Ever, because not just because of the copyright thing, but also because Thomas, the guy that developed it, is taking a long leave of absence due to ill health, unfortunately. So I really don't see that being developed any further. There you go. Is that the pro version?
I don't know. Can't remember.
Has it got Series 3?
The best bit about it is if you get the voltage selector wrong and it blows up.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
Although I wasn't quite.
Have you not tried that?
No.
Put the voltage selector on and it does all this burning.
Yeah.
So
So when you start it up, you get that. Oops. And then you have. So on the back of the Fairlight, you had voltage selectors. It could be used globally. I know. Try and get it so you can see it.
I'm in there now.
So you can choose, for example, like 220. And we just mess around with that, and we do that.
There's a smell of burning, and it goes pop.
Oh no! It's on fire.
And then you select the right voltage. But the reason that Peter put that in there is because that was their most frequent repair. Things got sent back to base because they didn't change the. So we can hear it starting up there. It's just like I've got the bloody thing going. Oh yeah. Honestly, if I had it going, you wouldn't be hearing me. But it was a common thing. It was like one of the most common repair jobs that they did was people burning out the PSUs. Anyway, there you go. So that's Moog's Model 15 modular synthesizer, which if you own it already on iOS, you can now install it on. It'll appear in the Mac App Store if you're using Big Sur, and you'll be able to cross-platform it across there. That, gentlemen and ladies in the audience, is all we have time for. We've gone a little bit over, but I kind of expected that we would. In general, though, opinions on NAMM 2021.
That's some good stuff.
Korg stole it, didn't they, really?
Yeah.
But,
They stole the limelight. I'm not entirely 100% sure they got everything right with the things that they put out, but they certainly...
I don't think we got to see as many interesting things coming out of small makers, and if there were, then it just wasn't publicized. So I felt like it wasn't just, again, the experience of it, not saying whether it was or not, just wasn't as good this year.
But then, this is a massive physical in-person event that they've had to, put online, and I think that for a lot of it, they got it as the best as they could. As I think I saw a conversation on the group. You can't just walk through the hall and find things and come across things and stumble across things. You had to kind of go looking for it and know where to go to look, and you had to learn how to navigate the whole thing. But there was some really interesting stuff, and then they threw up a whole bunch of their history. Oral history videos as well, which are all available anyway. So I went and watched a few of those, or had those running in the background during the day. I think overall they made the best of a bad job. If that
Closing question to you guys, hypothetically, of course, if you all got £5,000 or $5,000 in your case, Cryss, and you could buy one of the 2020-2021 NAMM releases, only one, what would it be? Same question to everyone in the chat room. You got $5,000. You can only buy one. What's the one thing you'd buy right now? Out of everything that's been released, everything we've spoken about today, everything we've spoken about in the last couple of weeks, what would it be?
I know what I want to say. Yeah, I'm going to say it. 700 FS. And I have change for something else. Yeah, I think out of all of that, that's the only one that really makes me go, "Ooh, I like that."
What we got? Wagyu says I'd buy the Behringer River. Okay.
So
Andy
Andrew
says 2700.
Yeah.
Sasquatch 20s. Yeah. Because we don't know how much the 2700 is going to be, but it ain't gonna, if it's over $5,000, then.
They're not gonna say that, are they?
And look, I mean, it really is. It's getting a lot of votes there. 2600 then for Tempo Roboto.
Because I think a lot of the answers to that are just expectations, and I'm sure they're right that this thing is going to sound mega. Because if it don't, it's gonna flop like
Yeah.
Have Kurzweil ever made an instrument that doesn't sound good?
No, and that's the
There's
thing.
your answer,
I mean,
I
the
think.
2600 does sound incredible.
Yeah.
It's an orchestra in a box.
Yeah.
So this thing is going to be 5 orchestras in a box plus. We're
yeah.
thinking.
I think the worst that could happen is that it doesn't sound any better than what went before, but it'll be as good as.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst case scenario. And I think the best case scenario is that it will sonically, it will just blow everything out of the water. And I'm still, I just think about it and I think, God, particularly because it's got FM built into it, so knock that off your synth bingo cards, it just keeps reminding me of the Fusion and how horribly let down it was. That it could have done what this was doing, because the 88 note Elise's Fusion is a beautiful keyboard, and it had all of that functionality, and it was just let down by a few poor decisions. Visually, looks like something out of Buck Rogers, but sonically, it had all of that capability. It had one of the best virtual analog synths engines at the time inside there. It's the same as the Ion and the Micron, it's that same technology, and it's beautiful. And just stunning, and it's just such a shame. But here we are.
Ben,
Kurzweil.
your $5,000. Where's it going?
Yeah, come on, Ben.
I think I'm gonna go with the UVI plug-in for 49 quid and buy a new car.
Or flood defences,
Yeah, no.
sandbags.
I think I would probably go with the Kurzweil as well.
Yeah. So was this limited to just NAMM announcements, or was this anything in the last?
From the stuff that we've spoken. Let's
Today.
say the lockdown releases from the beginning of 2020.
Oh, right.
Hydrosynth up to sort of now type of thing.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, because I just saw somebody mention the Prophet 5, Prophet
that's it.
10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then in that case, yeah, I'd go Prophet 10.
I'm getting the Prophet 10 then. Yeah.
No, you've got your little mini. You got your little mini now.
Oh, Wally?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean. I mean, stuff from sort of Hydrosynth. 2020 stuff up to now, and including all the stuff that's been shoved out in the last couple of weeks.
Well, yeah. I mean, if that's the bracket, then I would go, because the other one that I would get, I'm getting. You're getting, in a few weeks' time, hopefully. Touch wood. Essence FM Mark II. But yeah, Prophet 10. Then, if that's the case, Prophet 10, hands down. Even though it's an analog synth, it's that analog synth.
Even though.
Even though.
Have you picked anything, Chris?
From the last year would probably be the Prophet 10. Maybe if it wasn't that, the Arturia Polybrute, but then I would just complain about it being only 6 voices. So every time I played it, damn it,
Simon, you asked the question and throw it back at you, mate.
Well, if it includes the allocation, then I would like to have got my 2600 FM, but
You're
that
not
out of the
bitter about
equation. Hang on, what's Sasquatch saying? Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for all the. Yeah. So, what would I get now for $5,000? Yeah, maybe the poly. No, that you're right, Chris. That would really. It does. It always comes back to that, doesn't it? The polyphony. But again, do you know? I'm just wondering. Again, there's a long pregnant pause with this thing coming out, and I'm hoping, I'm probably wrong, but I'm hoping that someone in our tour is going, guys, this thing about the 6 voices? Well, everyone's going in enough. Maybe we should bring out a few more voices and just it's probably me being over wishful, but if they came out with an 8-voice version of that,
I mean, 2 more voices, just
exactly.
2 more voices,
It ain't a lot
it would
to
be done.
ask
I'd get
for,
it.
is it? It ain't a lot to ask for. So yeah, I want my 8-voice polybrute. That's what I spend my money on.
Fair enough.
Why
How
not
about
the 2700? Because it weighs a friggin' ton. I don't want to do me back any more damage.
here's another one that throw in the mix. Either Instruments SP 2400.
I wasn't into that, Rob. I saw
No?
the demo of that. It doesn't look anything like an SP 1200.
But it's not supposed to. I think this isn't inspired by rather than a clone of, because it pushes it even. Have you seen Alex Ball's
Rob,
videos?
Guess what?
What
was the thing that peed Simon off about it?
Go on.
Alex's video.
Well, apart from Alex's video, the epoxy screen on it.
Oh yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah.
Come on, I mean the original one had a same size screen on that. It was 30 odd years ago.
This is true.
Yeah,
But I must admit, after watching Alex's video, I was like, oh, do you know this? This is kind of interesting. You know, particularly the fact that you've got the old filters in there that you can make use of, and you can do all the old tricks.
Last week when you had what's his name? I was chatting in the chat room to Robert, is it Native VS, about Dave Rossum has kind of not reissued but redone or whatever. His one, it's a limited one with a badge on the front of it for $7,500.
Yeah, but you have to supply it.
Yes, I didn't realise that, and that's what Robert said. Yeah. I had no idea you've got to supply a shell and pay $7,500 for what was it? It's a mauve screen and a badge on it that says "Thank you very much" from Dave Rossum.
Yeah,
So
but he completely services everything inside, and it's it's brought up to
if
scratch.
it works, if it ain't broke, don't need
This is
fixing.
true. This is true. I almost had a drumulator last year. Somebody in America had one that was a little bit beaten up, and I thought, because for the price they were asking, it was worth it. And it went very quiet. I never heard them again, but I would like one of those.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wagyu, he's just put if he'll look at the 2700, but if there's a rack mount, I would definitely do that.
Yeah,
because the K2600, the K2600R, they're actually quite rare. They're a lot more scarce than the keyboard version. So I am hoping they do a rack mount of this. That it'd be, I guess they won't be able to put the drum pads on it, but just as a module.
Yeah, but you'd not miss those, would you? Really? I mean, if you really wanted drum pads, you can get an MPD controller for £80 or something.
Yeah.
I think as a sound engine, to shove in your rack and have that amount of clout, and the quality. I think it's it's one of the more interesting releases this last couple of weeks. That quality, it oozes it. I think it's kind of dripping in their history. And he's a fascinating guy, his old Ray Kurzweil, isn't he? He's some of the stuff that he's done, and he's still active, doing all sorts of things. He works at Google now, I think.
Does he?
Yeah, but I was, because when that whole conversation started on the group about how do you pronounce Kurzweil, and I still can't help myself from saying vile. I just kind of Googled it and kind of went down a little Ray Kurzweil kind of rabbit hole, and the stuff that guy has done is just incredible.
Again, I'll throw this to you, Chris. Purely because you're Native American. Would you pronounce it Kurzweil or Kurzweil?
Probably about how Robbie pronounced it, Kurzweil.
Kurzweil.
Kurzweil or Kurzweil.
That's how I think he pronounces it. Even though his father was Austrian and therefore spoke German, and therefore the correct pronunciation in the German sense will be vile. W is a V sound. So that's just how I pronounce it.
Well, it's
like at least last week we got to the bottom of how you pronounce Behringer.
Apparently, yes. Well, I mean, there was
Behringer sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer.
They had a video
Behringer,
about the pronunciation of it, but it's like Rickenbacker. I always thought it was Rickenbacker, but that would have been probably originally what it was. But when you call the company or you talk to anybody from the actual company itself, Rickenbacker is how it's pronounced as the company.
But then there are so many names out there, particularly ones that date back, maybe 60, 70 odd years, where the name has been changed because they wanted it to un-European it because of certain connotations, And
Chris, you know what we've forgotten?
What?
The vote, the weekly vote. We didn't mention the weekly vote.
We didn't have one.
What about the drum thing? Was that last week?
No. What one?
What did we not have on this week?
No, because we just kind of didn't do it because.
But what's funny is what we had planned for was going to post up on Tuesday was pretty much exactly the question that you had asked. It was just going to be what NAMM release did you,
sorry,
most interested in? So
I spoiled that one then. Sorry.
Good shout.
Yes, indeed.
Hey ho.
Well, there you go, lads. I think that was a very thoroughly entertaining and and I didn't go to the toilet once.
But you're busting now.
Kind of, yeah.
No, it's just wet.
Yeah, just damp. This is a commode. Yeah, oh, can you imagine?
The vote next week should be: does anyone, one, notice that Robbie's background lighting has changed, and two, do they like it? What colour would they like? Because he's got this new gadget with Alexa.
Yeah.
Go on, Robbie.
Somebody said at the beginning of the show, Robbie looks incredibly HD today. And I thought, oh, okay, it does work.
He's got Alexa-controlled LED backlight.
So I've had
now,
Alexa
folks.
in the studio for about a month now. Bought one at Christmas, and I've got some smart plugs dotted around, so I can go I won't do it. Oh, actually,
go on.
No,
you want to. Oh, she.
So, no, because if I turn stuff off, you get audio popping. But yeah, I can turn like that stack on, or I can turn that stack on separately, or I can say something and it turns everything on, a bit like Ben was doing. But I also bought some multicoloured or different coloured light bulbs, so I can just go Alexa lights red.
Colin, Auntie Gladys.
And so there we have a red light. Alexa lights purple, and you probably won't notice huge amounts of differences. Alexa,
on a sensible note, for the people that are left in the chat room, I would like to know: has anyone actually gone over to iOS 11? This is a serious question, Big Sir, and had any
macOS,
problems with either the UA hardware or the native instruments software, anything like that? Because I'm still very tentative about going over, but if someone can give me a definitive of yes it does work, or no, don't do it just yet 'cause it's still got teething problems, I would be very, very grateful.
I've just upgraded to Catalina, so I'm not the right person to ask on
Well,
that
that's
one.
what I'm running now, Ben, because I'm very nervous about doing it, but because last time they did a major upgrade, half of this kit stopped working, and silly of me, because UA actually did say, listen, don't run it, because it's a lot of their stuff just craps out. But at the moment, they're saying now it does work, but I kind of I'm sitting on my hands a little bit.
Yeah.
Magoo, what's he saying for OS X in 1014? Forever, unless I get. Oh, yeah, okay.
I've recently upgraded to Big Sur was it this week, I think?
Oh, okay.
And so far, it's been pretty good as far as music making stuff. I haven't had any problems. The only plugin that I had a problem working is I pulled up my full bucket Poly 8. What's it called? Fury 800 or Fury 400, whichever one it is. And it worked with the settings that I had, but I couldn't. You wouldn't show you where the sliders were. You could still adjust stuff, but that's been the only one so far, which has been great.
And the beta upgrade that you've got for your OB6, thumbs up or thumbs down with this slop and everything? The vintage thing, isn't it now?
Yeah, so I had spent a number of hours trying to upgrade it when they released the beta on it, and they wouldn't talk anything about it, but it came out that a bunch of people are having a hard time loading it onto just the OB6 keyboard, which is what I have. My buddy brought his Prophet 5 over, and I was able to upgrade that right away with the same setup, so it wasn't my setup, and I upgraded my OB6 before, but they just a day or two ago released a new beta for it, so I literally right before the show I loaded it on and played it for a few minutes. It's I think it's better. It's very subtle, but it does take it's not just pitch, it's envelope timing and cutoff frequency between filters and things like that. It's nice. It sounds when you can get it to where where the slopper detuned before, it would just go really wildly out of tune and sound kind of funny. But this actually gets to sounding like an old synthesizer. When you crank it all up, it sounds bad in the way that it should sound bad. And then you back it off and you find the sweet spots.
They could have called it a knackered button, really, couldn't they?
It doesn't translate that well, though, does it?
It's odd, though, that the upgrade they did for the P6 no one seemed to have the same problems they had with the OB6. Is that right, Ben? Because you upgraded yours.
I had no problem with mine at all.
Yeah, and in fact, the OB6 module, people weren't having problems with it. It looks like it was mostly the OB6 keyboard, which, again, just from other people having problems with me upgrading the P6 here, it appears that there was a problem with their firmware, but they never said anything about it. They just left it quiet until they released the new one. So after that happened, like I said, at one try and it was on here, no problem.
Folks, you're getting this live because usually after when Rob ends the show, this goes on for another 10-15 minutes. We fire these questions at each other and go, what have you been doing?
This is the after show. This is what
this is the PSN after show, but yeah. Sorry for keeping everyone up.
No, not at all. No, I'm just pissing my pants here.
Rob, did you not realise I was doing this for a reason?
Yes, yeah. You I shall get my
anyway.
I shall get my own back. Yes, indeed. Well, anyway, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much for your company this evening. For everyone else in the chat room, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for all of your input. Without you, we wouldn't be doing this show, and we certainly wouldn't be having as much fun. Don't forget, if you don't already, please do come and join us on our Facebook page. Just search for Pro Synth Network on Facebook and answer questions 3, and we'll let you in, and you can join in the fun over there. And of course, if you also want to donate to us, our link is below us, just down there. All donations very welcome, and we're incredibly grateful for that. We will be back same time, same place next week. I'll just turn my banners off here. Same time, same place next week. We don't know if we've got a guest yet. We're working on it, but we are putting our feelers out. We're hopefully going to get some people that you don't normally see on these kinds of shows. And don't
forget February filter sweep.
Yes, please do. I think Andrew posted something already on our page, but please, Andrew, if you want to post it again, feel free. Yeah. We won't knock you off for spamming or anything like that. Not this time, anyway. FFS, hashtag FFS, February filter sweep, in support of our friends and the stupid copyright claims that go on. Anyway, guys, thanks ever so much for your company this week. Much enjoyment to be had, and we'll see you all same time, same place next week. Goodbye.